Chapter 701. Hua Xiaoheng knew that Qinlai was most concerned about Yi Zitan, but unfortunately she was the biggest suspect. He sighed. Qinlai, don't let your emotions get the better of you. If Dr. Yi isn't a suspect, she will naturally be released. What do you mean? Qinlai walked out from behind his desk and stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng. Although he wasn't as tall as Hua Xiaoheng, his anger made him seem 1.8 meters tall. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it and called Zhao Liangzi. Did you find the things I asked you to find? Zhao Liangzi quickly asked. The 3 letters you asked me to find before you came back. Yes, did you find them? Hua Xiaoheng glanced at the confused Qinlai. If you found them, send them to Dr. Chen's office. 5 minutes later, Zhao Liangzi knocked on Qinlai's office door. Hua Xiaoheng personally opened the door and took a file stamped "Confidential" in red from his hands. Mr. Hua, General Ji has already called you several times, Zhao Liangzi said worriedly. Shouldn't you find a chance to call General Ji back? No matter how angry he was, he couldn't be angry with his superior. Hua Xiaoheng understood this, but he really wasn't in the mood or energy to report to General Ji. Also, things on the other side were more complicated, but he had to solve all the things on hand first before going to General Ji to settle things on their side. Stairs had to be climbed step by step. If he went to the top without a solid foundation, it would be easy to get knocked down. Hua Xiaoheng said to him, if General Ji calls again, tell him we're really busy here. Many people are locked up in solitary and I have to check them one by one. When things here are over, I will personally go to the Standing Committee of the Supreme Military Council to make a detailed report. Yes, Chief. I've written it all down. When Mr. Hua is done here, report to the Standing Committee. Okay, that's it. Hua Xiaoheng nodded at him and closed the door. Returning to Qinlai, Hua Xiaoheng shook the file in his hand and said, Qinlai, I'm sorry about this, but you have to know that I didn't do it without a reason. The corners of Qinlai's mouth twitched. Of course you have a reason. Hua Xiao of the Special Operations Forces always has a reason for everything he does. Hua Xiaoheng didn't care about Qinlai's sarcasm. He handed the file to him. Here are the original stubs of 3 registered letters and 2 letters. Take a look. Qinlai was baffled, but he still took it and opened it. He quickly read through it and said, 3 registration stubs. Why are there only 2 letters? Where's the other one? He looked at the stub of the registered letter and his heart sank. That letter was sent to me? Hua Xiaoheng nodded and slowly walked to the window. With his hands behind his back, he looked out at the dazzling night view and said calmly, I went on a mission to New York a few months ago. You know that? Yeah, it's for the Prime Minister's daughter. Qinlai pursed his lips. I knew it the moment I came out today. How was it? Was there a contradiction? On one side, there's a little girl who's infatuated with you, and on the other side, there's a rich and beautiful girl from a noble background. Who will you choose? What nonsense are you talking about? Hua Xiaoheng turned around and glanced at him. I'm serious. Okay. Please continue. Qinlai raised his hands in surrender. I'm all ears. I went on a mission to New York and something went wrong. Our operations were all under surveillance and we were almost wiped out. Qinlai was speechless. He started to become serious. Are you serious? Why would I lie to you? In our line of work, although we're always prepared to give up our lives, we're not always prepared to be betrayed by our own people. Hua Xiaoheng turned around. His expression was still calm, but his words were murderous. In our line of work, we won't let go of anyone who betrays their comrades. Wasn't it your own fault that your operation failed? Do you have evidence to say that someone betrayed you? Qinlai didn't know why, but his heart started to beat faster. Yeah, it's possible. Hua Xiaoheng turned around again and continued to look out the window. So I was abroad for a few months and investigated one by one. I also sent 3 registered letters to the 3 organizations in the country that were most likely to leak the secret. Qinlai's breathing stopped. He looked at Hua Xiaoheng nervously. And then, only the letter that was sent to you was verified to be related to the person who betrayed me. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was flat and emotionless. Qinlai's legs had already turned to jelly, and he sat on the ground. His round face was pale, and behind his round glasses was a pair of round eyes filled with fear. No, that's impossible. Could there be a misunderstanding here? Hua Xiaoheng didn't turn around. He didn't want to embarrass Qinlai. Qinlai, as you said, I've been friends with you for more than 10 years, and I've never doubted you. There are too many secrets between us. If you wanted to betray me, any one of them could have killed me. You didn't have to go through so much trouble. Hearing Hua Xiaoheng say this, the smile on Qinlai's face was uglier than crying. He opened his mouth, wishing he could take the blame for everything, but his years of experience as a soldier made him unable to open his mouth. Because this wasn't a normal responsibility. It was the responsibility of betraying one's comrades and killing them. Even if he was willing to take the blame, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't allow the real traitor to get away scot-free. Because if he did that, it would cause more comrades to sacrifice their lives. No matter how selfish Qinlai was, he couldn't do such an unprincipled thing. He was in so much pain that he was about to die. There was a heavy stone in his heart, so heavy that he couldn't straighten his back. Qinlai, I think you've realized. All the letters here, even the phone, were handled by Dr. Yi. I asked little Zay to retrieve these 3 letters, and only you guys didn't find them. I asked Zhou Qiyuan to ask Yi Zitan, and she said she didn't see this letter. Qinlai sighed and stood up with the help of the table leg. With some hope, he said, maybe she really didn't receive it. Maybe it fell into someone else's hands. You know, I really didn't see that letter. What you said makes sense, but Zhou Qiyuan checked, and the letter was registered in the receiving department. That means it was sent to your hospital building, and there were also distribution records. The last place it went missing was at Yi Zitan's place. Hua Xiaoheng sighed and shook his head. Actually, I didn't want it to be her, but all the signs pointed to it being her. We had no choice. As soon as he returned, the first thing he did was deal with the traitor. He had cast Yi Zitan's net for 3 months before he finally pulled it in. Qinlai was silent and sat on the sofa with his head down. His fingers unconsciously dug a small hole in the sofa, and no one knew what he was thinking. Hua Xiaoheng continued. Other than this letter, Yi Zitan also did something I can't forgive. Qinlai snorted and said, she betrayed you, and that's already the most unforgivable thing. Is there anything more serious than that? Yes, she betrayed Nianji, Hua Xiaoheng said dryly. Don't you want to know who tied up the cat and threw it down the building? This time she's one of them. What? Qinlai jumped up. This matter was completely subverting his understanding. WWI. Impossible. Isn't she on good terms with Nianji? Why would she do this to Nianji? Qinlai looked at Hua Xiaoheng in shock, and all sorts of conspiracy theories popped up in his mind. He even wondered if Yi Zitan also had a crush on Hua Xiaoheng, and that was why she was jealous of Gu Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng saw the look in his eyes and knew he was thinking too much. He coughed silently and looked away. Actually, I also want to know Yi Zitan's motive. Qinlai, do you want to ask her yourself? Qinlai hugged his head and curled up on the sofa, feeling very conflicted. If what Hua Xiaoheng said was true, then Yi Zitan really couldn't escape death. But what if it was a misunderstanding? What if there was a very smart person who set up a trap and framed Yi Zitan? Hua Xiao, are you sure it's Yi? Dr. Yi? Why would she do this? Qinlai was very confused. Whether it was her treatment or her status, she didn't need to do this. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. I think so too, but all the evidence points to her. I can't do anything. Qinlai looked at Hua Xiaoheng in distress. I think, you don't need to think. Hua Xiaoheng interrupted Qinlai's hesitation. There's one more thing. Because of Yi Zitan's betrayal, 2 of our field agents died in Berlin, Germany. Qinlai felt as if his heartstrings had finally snapped. Before, he had a glimmer of hope that he could plead for mercy for Yi Zitan. Even if she was sentenced to life in prison, it would be better than being executed immediately. But now that 2 lives were involved, he knew that if he pleaded for mercy he would be like Yi Zitan, a traitor to his comrades. Although he had a crush on Yi Zitan for many years, he couldn't tell right from wrong. Also, the Yi Zitan he had a crush on wouldn't do such a heartless thing. Hua Xiao, tell me again. How do you prove that she did it? Qinlai asked for confirmation one last time. His face was numb, and he put an end to his crush that had died without a cause. Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms and leaned against the windowsill. The night wind blew in, bringing with it the chill of late autumn. His deep, mellow voice rang out in the room like a subwoofer. First, I sent 3 letters in the United States representing 3 different locations. That was where I was staying in New York. Finally, only the location represented in the letter that was sent to you attracted CIA agents to search that block. Second, Zhou Qiyuan's investigation showed that Nianji had called and texted you before, but her text messages and caller ID could not be found on your phone. Later, technical means were used to recover the deleted records. That period of time was when you were in surgery, and Yi Zitan was holding your phone. Third, before the field office sent 2 field agents to Germany, they came to the infirmary to get vaccinated. Later, after the technicians recovered the data on her phone, they found that she had sent a text message to a very special phone number. Not only did she provide the photo of the 2 field agents to that number, But she also indicated to the other party to follow the two field agents, saying that they would be able to find Yanji that way. This was the first night watch. It looked like the monthly votes would reach 2,700 today. Today was the third night watch. A reminder for everyone. The second monthly vote would be 2,700, and the third night would be 7 p.m. Thanks to Chidian's Only Reading Makes People Happy in Life, and Enigma Yangxi, for their 10,000 Chidian coins each yesterday. Moi. Chapter 702. Wu Xiaoheng's words were like a heavy hammer that hit Qinlai so hard he almost fainted. He rubbed his forehead with his hand, his heart heavy. He couldn't figure out why Yi Zitan would do this. Wu Xiao, you really want me to ask her? Qinlai put down his hand and asked woodenly. He really couldn't figure it out, so he had to ask her personally. What if Yi Zitan told him that she was innocent? Qinlai went to the Department of Discipline's building with this one-in-a-million hope and went to see Yi Zitan with Wu Xiaoheng. He had just been released from this building in the morning. The place where the suspects were held was about the same size as the solitary confinement room, but it had an extra bed, a table and a chair, as well as a small bathroom with a toilet. The conditions were about the same as a single-person's cell. But no matter how good the conditions were, it was still a cell and most people wouldn't want to live there. Qinlai came to the interrogation room and sat down. The interrogation room here was different from a normal one. The entire square room was separated by a transparent glass wall in the middle of the room. He sat on one side and Yi Zitan sat on the other. As soon as Yi Zitan saw him enter, she immediately stood up and leaned forward. She leaned against the glass wall and asked nervously, "Dr. Chen, what the hell is going on? Please save me." The glass wall actually wasn't soundproof. Of course, perhaps there was a loudspeaker, but the two of them didn't need a receiver or headphones to speak clearly. Qinlai looked at her sorrowfully and didn't understand how all of this had happened. Yi Zitan's beautiful oval face was already very haggard. Her hair was messy and her clothes, which used to be neat and tidy, were full of wrinkles. She leaned against the glass wall, her beautiful eyes unblinking as she looked at him, full of pleading and longing. In Qinlai's memory, this was the first time Yi Zitan had looked at him so intently and passionately. He looked back at her, his eyes full of sorrow and despair, as well as deep confusion and guilt. "Doctor, I also want to ask you, what did Nianji do to you that you would harm her like this?" Qinlai exhaled deeply and asked his biggest question directly. Yi Zitan was caught off guard and couldn't hide the expression on her face in time. She took a step back in shock, her eyes flashing as she looked elsewhere. After a while she mumbled, "Dr. Chen, I don't understand what you mean." Qinlai had a crush on Yi Zitan for many years and knew her every move by heart. The series of small, unconscious movements just now had not escaped Qinlai's eyes. The last shred of hope in Qinlai's heart disappeared. He had originally thought that if there was even the slightest possibility that Yi Zitan had been framed, even if it meant breaking ties with Wu Xiao, he would fight for her innocence to the end. But Yi Zitan didn't have time to hide her shock and dodge, so she exposed herself. If she didn't have a guilty conscience, why was she avoiding his gaze? If she didn't have a guilty conscience, why would she retreat in shock? Qinlai looked at Yi Zitan, his eyes gradually turning red. He took a step forward and placed both hands on the glass wall. With a thick nasal voice he asked, "Why? You tell me why. You betrayed Wu Xiao. Even if you let your brother down, I will still go against my conscience and speak up for you. But Nianji, she's so young and pitiful. How could you have the heart to rub salt into her wounds? How could you have the heart to collude with outsiders to harm her? What did they offer you? How dare you do such a thing?" Yi Zitan hadn't expected Qinlai, who had always been so submissive and nice to her, to ask such a question. She found it hard to accept his attitude. How could a person who had a crush on her for so many years ask such a question? Yi Zitan stared blankly at Qinlai and asked quietly, "Qinlai, in your heart the person you love the most is actually Gu Nianji, right?" Qinlai, mother asterisk cur. What nonsense was she spouting? Qinlai slammed his hand against the glass wall and panted. "Yi Zitan, I know you never had me in your heart, but you can't. You can't slander me like this. You can choose not to love me, but if you twist my feelings for you like this, it will make me look down on you and myself. If the person you love is me, why are you speaking up for others?" Yi Zitan looked at him sadly. "It's not like you don't know the situation I'm in right now. You're my only hope." Qinlai stared blankly at Yi Zitan. Looking at the woman he had a crush on for 7 or 8 years, he realized he had never really known her. Not only had she done something wrong, but she also had no intention of repenting. "Yi Zitan, tell me, why did you do this?" Did I not treat you well, or did the military general hospital not treat you well, or did Nianji not treat you well? Qinlai was a very scientific person. Even if it was a complicated and messy relationship, he still tried to analyze it with strict logic and clear reasoning. Yi Zitan hung her head and said in a panic, "Why did I do this? What did I do? I'm locked up here. You still won't admit it? Your phone is in their hands." Qinlai was in a bad mood. "Yi Zitan, if you have difficulties." Before he could finish, Yi Zitan interrupted him. "That's impossible. There can't be evidence on my phone." She had clearly deleted everything. Qinlai glared at her and was shocked again. "I didn't even say it was evidence and you already thought of it? So it really was you. Don't you know that it's useless to delete the evidence? Don't you know the Special Operations Force's methods? Even if you smash the chip, they have a way to restore it." Yi Zitan shuddered and fear finally appeared on her face. She shook her head furiously and retreated step by step until she reached the corner of the wall. When she had nowhere else to go, she hugged her head and knelt down against the wall, sobbing. "What's the point of crying? I really don't understand. You're not even 30 yet and you're already a major. I'm writing a report to the military to promote you to lieutenant colonel next year. What's wrong with you?" Qinlai ran his fingers through his hair in frustration and paced around the other side of the room. Turning his head to look at Yi Zitan huddled up against the glass wall, then thinking about Gu Nianji lying unconscious on the hospital bed, Qinlai felt terrible. Who could accept that the girl he truly loved was a psychopathic person who betrayed her comrades and friends? But the feelings he had given couldn't be taken back so easily. He still had feelings for Yi Zitan, but it wasn't beyond reason. So he was even more heartbroken. "You still won't tell me? Forget it, what's the point even if you know? Anyway, there are a few conditions. It's either for money or for someone. Dr. Yi, you've never been a vain woman, so it should be for someone. What methods did they use to seduce you? Did you fall for their pretty boy trap?" Qinlai continued to ask with a blank face. He knew he wasn't a handsome man and wasn't particularly attractive to women, so he only dared to have a crush on Yi Zitan. He never dared to say it out loud, afraid that if he did, they wouldn't even be friends anymore. Hearing his words, Yi Zitan raised her head and bit her lip as she looked at Qinlai, as if his words had struck a nerve. She widened her eyes and said, "Dr. Qin, you don't have to belittle yourself. With such an outstanding person like you by my side, how could I fall for their pretty boy trap?" She never liked a man's appearance. Qinlai froze. "What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Yi Zitan was suddenly angry. She stood up and rushed to the glass wall, waving her fists at Qinlai on the other side. "You're asking me what I mean? You're so outstanding. So outstanding. He could perform any kind of surgery with ease. You write so many high-quality papers every year. And so many new treatment patents. Even if I don't eat, drink, or sleep and stay in the lab 24 hours a day, I still can't be half as good as you." "You? What did you say?" Qinlai was so shocked he stuttered. Yi Zitan's words just now shocked him even more than Hua Xiaoheng saying she was a mole. Yi Zitan actually calmed down after saying what was on her mind. She ran her fingers through her hair and smiled bitterly. "So Dr. Qin must look down on me?" She leaned her head against the glass wall and looked straight ahead. She murmured, "I was born in a normal family. I know that people like me have to work very hard to become someone above others. Ever since I was young, while my peers played around, I was doing homework and doing competition questions. When I was in university, my roommates all started to enjoy university life, finding boyfriends and dating. I woke up early every day and returned late to study in the library to fight for more lab time. I worked so hard and I always got first place. But after I was assigned to the military hospital, I met you, Qinlai. You're someone I can't surpass no matter how hard I try." Qinlai had never imagined that he was one of the reasons Yi Zitan became a mole. Qinlai looked at Yi Zitan with his mouth agape. He couldn't say anything. Hua Xiaoheng's expression darkened. He pushed open the door from the room next door and said to Yi Zitan, "Someone else's excellence is the reason you betrayed your comrade? Yi Zitan, don't blame your mistakes on someone else." As soon as she saw Hua Xiaoheng, Yi Zitan's earlier anger disappeared. Her entire body trembled as she slowly slid down the glass wall and knelt on the other side. "Tell me, what benefits did they promise you? Who was the person who contacted you?" Hua Xiaoheng gestured at Qinlai with his lips to signal for him to leave. Qinlai had already gotten all the answers. He didn't want to stay here any longer. His footsteps were unsteady as he left the interrogation room in a daze. Hua Xiaoheng stood there with his hands behind his back. Zhou Qiyuan pushed the door open, walked in and began interrogating Yi Zitan. He had asked her many times over the past few days, but Yi Zitan had gritted her teeth and refused to say anything. It wasn't until today that Hua Xiaoheng had asked Qinlai to pry open Yi Zitan's defenses. Yi Zitan, who contacted you first? How did he come into contact with you? Zhou Qiyuan began to ask step by step. However, Yi Zitan was unwilling to answer Zhou Qiyuan's question. She only glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and said, Hua Xiao, I'm very sorry that Nianji died. The person I owe the most is Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng. Who told you Nianji died? This is the second monthly ticket of 2700 plus 1 update. A reminder for everyone. 7 p.m. of the third watch. Moi. Chapter 703. Gu Nianji really didn't die? Yi Zitan asked in shock. From Qinlai's tone earlier she had thought she was infected with H3ob7. Didn't they say that anyone who was infected with this virus would die? You sure know. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's mouth twitched. His calm face had a hint of mockery. Nianji is far away in Germany. How do you know what virus she was infected with? Did she not get it? Yi Zitan was even more shocked. That's impossible? Don't treat things that are beyond your knowledge as impossible. Dr. Yi, you're also a person with a scientific spirit. How can you be so narrow-minded? Zhou Qiyuan added insult to injury. Tell me, how did you interact with those people? We've already recorded the papers they sent you. Please don't think you can get away with it. What? How can you touch my things? Yi Zitan completely broke down. Those papers were exquisite and beyond medical knowledge. They were treasures to her. They had almost become her religion. Once her faith collapsed, all her support would be gone. Yi Zitan raised her head and glared at Hua Xiaoheng. Her lips quivered as if she wanted to say something, but she silently closed her mouth and hung her head heavily. Her entire body collapsed to the ground. Yi. Zhou Qiyuan still wanted to ask, but Hua Xiaoheng suddenly raised his hand. No need to ask anymore. People like her might not be telling the truth. Zhou Qiyuan nodded. The chief is right. We've interrogated her the most during this time, but she hasn't revealed any truly useful information. We suspect that she actually doesn't know who to contact. In other words, Yi Zitan was only a small fry. According to Zhou Qiyuan, they should follow the clues and investigate further. Hua Xiaoheng stood in the interrogation room with his hands behind his back. He looked at Yi Zitan deeply and quickly weighed the pros and cons in his mind before making a decision. No need to ask any more. She tipped off the enemy and caused the deaths of 2 field agents. Innocent Huaxia imperial citizens were harmed. The evidence is conclusive, and she should be executed immediately. In the Special Operations Forces, he had the authority to deal with traitors. Yi Zitan's case had already been heard in a secret court in the military court, but nothing was revealed. However, her conversation with Qinlai had been recorded. It could be used as evidence in court. She had already confessed that she had done those things, so there was no possibility of her being wrongly accused. Yes, Chief. Zhou Qiyuan hurriedly saluted and immediately went out to order people to find the military court to complete the procedures. Although Hua Xiaoheng had ordered her to be executed immediately, they still needed a death sentence from the military court. This is a matter of procedure. After Zhou Qiyuan left, Hua Xiaoheng stood quietly in the interrogation room for a while, his deep gaze falling on Yi Zitan. After a long time he finally turned and left. Hua Xiaoheng came out of the interrogation room and saw Zhou Qiyuan waiting for him, as if he had something to say. What is it? Chief, I have something to report to you. Zhou Qiyuan gave Hua Xiaoheng a look. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and turned to leave. The two of them walked out of the Department of Discipline building and headed towards the hospital building where Qinlai was. Along the way, Zhou Qiyuan whispered, Hua Xiao, are you really not going to investigate anymore? What's there to investigate? Hua Xiaoheng asked calmly. Did you find out something? No, but if we want to investigate Yi Zitan's case, I'm afraid there's a problem that's hard to say. Zhou Qiyuan was more worried that if someone really wanted to overturn Yi Zitan's case, this problem might be a breakthrough point. What problem? Hua Xiaoheng stopped walking. Say it. It's the phone number that contacted her. We tracked it down and found that it was an empty number. No one used it at all, and the mobile company couldn't find any records of it. The last time this number was used was 17 years ago. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed. Maybe the person behind this is very cunning, or maybe their backer is very powerful. Although we found out it was an empty number, it might not really be an empty number. Zhou Qiyuan nodded. I think so too, so why not use Yi Zitan to lure out the person behind her? Hua Xiaoheng usually didn't like to explain things to people, but Zhou Qiyuan was one of his confidants, and he valued him a lot, so he patiently found an excuse. An empty number that even the mobile company can't find. If it's someone with power, then this person's power is extraordinary. If it's not using power but using technology, then this level of technology is really not something an ordinary person can achieve. From what I know, even the American CIA, British MI5, Russia's KGB, and Israel's Mossad can't do it. If these people can't do it, then... Zhou Qiyuan suddenly understood. No matter how they looked at it, the person behind Yi Zitan was very powerful, and they didn't want to face them head-on for now. So for a small fry like Yi Zitan, early death was the right method. If they kept her alive, if the other party suddenly exerted his strength and rescued her, they would lose the entire game. Yi Zitan had been in the Special Operations Forces for so many years, and no one knew how many secrets she knew. So the best way to deal with it now was to get rid of this person as soon as possible. Yes, Chief, I understand. Zhou Qiyuan saluted respectfully and planned to personally go to the military court to get the death sentence. Hua Xiaoheng returned to Chen Lai's side and first went to the single room to see Gunyanji. She was still sleeping and her high fever hadn't subsided. Her little face was burning red and her lips were chapped. Hua Xiaoheng took a sterilized gauze and dipped it in distilled water. He pressed it on Gunyanji's lips bit by bit to soften the chapped tissue. Chen Lai heard him return and came out of his office. He rubbed his hands and looked at him nervously. Hua Xiaoheng didn't even look up. He continued to wipe Gunyanji's lips and said quietly, "If you have time, you can go see Yi Zitan before dawn tomorrow and see her one last time." Chen Lai. Although he was mentally prepared, Chen Lai still couldn't take it when Hua Xiaoheng suddenly said it like that. He took off his glasses and took out a cloth from his pocket to continuously wipe them. His hands trembled and he couldn't speak for a long time. Chen Lai wiped his glasses whenever he was nervous, and Hua Xiaoheng was very familiar with this habit of his. "I understand how you feel, but a mistake is a mistake. You have to take responsibility for it. Her mistake can't be forgiven just by saying sorry. She committed a crime and she committed a felony that carries an immediate death sentence." Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gunyanji's lips. The chapped dead skin had already been wiped away by the gauze dipped in distilled water. Her lips had a faint blush, and her soft and full lips had almost no wrinkles. Her lips were very light and pale to the point that they were almost transparent. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her silently for a while and tucked her in. Chen Lai covered his face and turned to run back to his office. He slammed the office door shut. Hua Xiaoheng knew that Chen Lai must be feeling terrible, but he couldn't tolerate it and couldn't continue waiting. He sat in Gunyanji's room and had originally planned to stay there, but not long after, Zhou Qiyuan called him and said that the judge of the secret military court still had some doubts and was unwilling to issue the death warrant immediately. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it and said, "Call Director Bai from the legal department and have her negotiate with the judge. I'll be right there." Hua Xiaoheng hung up the phone and knocked on Chen Lai's door. Chen Lai dawdled inside for a while and came out with red eyes. "What is it?" "I have to go out for a while. Take care of Nianji here." Hua Xiaoheng patted his shoulder. "My condolences." Chen Lai was speechless. After Hua Xiaoheng left, Chen Lai didn't return to his office. He sat by Gunyanji's bed and watched the data from the instruments while chattering to her. Because he knew she was still unconscious and couldn't hear anything, Chen Lai said everything. "Nianji, are you better? I'm really sorry. I didn't know Yi Zitan would be like this. But Hua Xiao wants her dead so soon. He must hate her a lot, right? Nianji, wake up soon." "Maybe." "Maybe what?" Chen Lai suddenly couldn't continue. One-sided love wasn't that strong. In this relationship there was no response, no beautiful memories. There was only Chen Lai's one-man show. At this point he also felt that it was very boring. Love is really the most boring thing in the world. It's the most time-wasting thing. Chen Lai looked at the data records and changed the paper inside. He threw the full roll of paper into the stainless steel trash can and set it on fire. Not long after, Chen Lai noticed that Gunyanji's high fever had already gone down. It was half the time it took before. He focused his attention on Gunyanji again. He adjusted the instruments and observed her. When Gunyanji woke up, it was already past 1 in the morning. She woke up when Chen Lai chattered about Yi Zitan in her ear. She was confused and finally couldn't help but open her eyes and ask, "Brother Chen, what happened to Dr. Yi?" Chen Lai was shocked by Gunyanji's sudden words. He froze for a moment before smacking his forehead and smiling. "That's great, Nianji. You're really fine now." Gunyanji sighed. "My whole body feels weak. Does that count?" She continued to ask, "Brother Chen, what were you saying just now? Why do I feel like you want to burn incense for Dr. Yi?" Qinlai asked. Is it that obvious? Gun Yanji was shocked. She struggled to sit up on the bed. What happened? Yanji, tell me. Did you call me when you were in Germany? Qinlai asked her sternly. Gun Yanji nodded. I did. Dr. Yi picked up. She said you were operating on the chief. She added, you also texted. Why did you text me and call me? I was being hunted in Germany and asked you for help. I want you to help me find Brother Xiong and Brother Zhe. Gun Yanji instinctively swallowed the words, Hua Xiao. It was the third watch. A reminder for everyone. Good night, everyone. Chapter 704. You were really being hunted down? Why were you being hunted down in Germany? Qinlai's round eyes grew even wider, and his last sliver of hope sank to the bottom. His heart felt like it was soaked in coptish juice and it tasted bitter from the inside out. Gun Yanji didn't know what was wrong with Qinlai to ask her that. She couldn't help but look at him with a half-smile. Yeah, I was bored, so I was looking for people to hunt me down for fun. Are you satisfied with this reason? Qinlai immediately knew he had gone too far. His round forehead beaded with sweat, and he took out a handkerchief to wipe it off as he apologized profusely. Yanji, I didn't mean that. I just feel bad. He choked up. This is all Dr. Ye's fault. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't have been hunted down. I only found out now that she kept you from me by texting and calling me. Gun Yanji's eyes widened as well. She hadn't expected this at all. What happened? How could it have anything to do with Dr. Yi? I didn't believe it at first either. Qinlai spread his hands. But Hua Xiao produced evidence and Dr. Yi admitted it herself. Oh? It really was her? Gun Yanji sat up straight. Could it be that the two field agents' deaths had something to do with her? The two field agents were the biggest pain in Gun Yanji's heart. They had died because of her, and she had vowed to find the traitor when she was in Germany to avenge them. She hadn't expected the traitor to be Yi Zieten. It had something to do with her. She was the one who leaked the news about them so that people would hunt you down. Qinlai's eyes reddened again, and he quickly wiped his face with the back of his hand. Hua Xiao won't let her go. He already told me to see her one last time. Gun Yanji was speechless. She didn't know what to say. Normally she should be comforting Qinlai. But seeing Qinlai so sad, she thought of the families of the two field agents. Their relatives, friends, parents, wives, and children. How sad they must be. As for herself, because of Yi Zieten's betrayal, not only did she lose the precious opportunity to contact the base for rescue, but she also almost died. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party wanted more things from her, she would have been buried in some mountain range in the Alps a long time ago, just like those two field agents. Gun Yanji's eyes darkened, and her hands clutched the blanket on the bed tightly. She held it in and said, Brother Qin, I'm sorry, but I can't comfort you and I don't want to tell you it's okay. Because what Dr. Yi has done is unforgivable. Qinlai's tears fell even harder. I'm very familiar with Dr. Yi and we can even be considered friends, but when I think about the two field agents she killed, I want her dead immediately. I know you like Dr. Yi very much, Brother Qin. I shouldn't pour salt on your wound at this time, but if you blame those of us who were killed by her for that kind of bad person, then I'm sorry, Brother Qin. I think I'll really fall out with you. Gun Yanji lifted the blanket and held onto the bed frame to get off. Qinlai quickly supported her. Although he was still crying, he sobbed and said, Yanji, don't be angry. I really don't blame you. I know what she did is unforgivable. I know that she is indeed crazy and guilty of the most heinous crimes. But you know I'm human and I have feelings. I've liked her for so many years. Although the feelings I invested were only my own, they were still feelings. I can't take them back just because I say so. I actually already know that she's not the person I have a crush on. Or rather, I've never truly understood her. But when I heard you say her name and thought of the fate she's about to face, I still can't help it. Then go ahead and cry. After you cry this time, don't shed another tear for that kind of person because it's not worth it. Gun Yanji took a deep breath. She had also been deeply in love before, although she had only been a one-woman show. Therefore she could empathize with Qinlai's sadness and despair. Gun Yanji took out a tissue from the box on the table and passed it to Qinlai. Brother Qin, don't use a handkerchief anymore. Use this. She then took Qinlai's arm and sat down on the sofa against the wall. Brother Qin, you're so amazing, smart and funny. There are actually many girls who like you. I'll introduce some good girls to you in the future. Then you'll know how unreliable a crush is. Qinlai cried for a while and felt better. He wiped his face with a tissue and said listlessly, What do you mean by a crush? I think it's a waste of time and boring. Well said. Gu Nianji couldn't help clapping. Brother Chin, you really hit the nail on the head. Dating is really unreliable, a waste of time, and discourages people from improving themselves. I've finally seen through it. Seen through it? How old are you? You've already seen through it? Then what about Huoxiao? Qinlai finally laughed at Gu Nianji's words. You're making light of the situation. You already have a boyfriend and you're making such sarcastic remarks. You know people want to beat you up for saying that? Gu Nianji smiled faintly. How can I have a boyfriend? Brother Qin, you think too highly of me. I'm just shamelessly throwing myself at him. Qinlai was speechless. That didn't sound right. It was too serious. Nianji? What is it? Did you get a concussion from the electric shock? You're talking nonsense. Isn't it still a concussion? Qinlai turned to look at her. But I did a CT scan on you. Your brain is fine. And you don't have any symptoms of vomiting? Gu Nianji put a hand to her forehead and leaned back on the sofa. Brother Qin, I'm serious. Just like how you came to a sudden realization about your feelings for Dr. Yi, so did I. Qinlai frowned as he looked at Gu Nianji. He had a nagging feeling that something was wrong with her, but he had been through so much turmoil recently. Today he had been traumatized by Gu Nianji and Yi Zitan's incident. His body couldn't take it anymore. His brain refused to analyze it rationally. Qinlai yawned. I can't take it anymore. I have to sleep for a while and then I have to see Dr. Yi one last time before dawn. I want to tidy up. Gu Nianji said. Go get some sleep. When do you plan to wake up? I'll wake you up. Qinlai looked at his watch. I'll sleep for 2 hours. Just wake me up at 3:30. He then asked Gu Nianji, you really don't want to sleep? Gu Nianji shook her head. I feel like I slept for a long time. I'm not sleepy at all. Qinlai also knew that Gu Nianji had a special constitution. If she said she wasn't sleepy, then she wasn't sleepy. He didn't stand on ceremony with her. Then stay here and don't go anywhere. I'm still waiting for you to wake me up. There's an iPad and a computer here. You can play by yourself. Qinlai pointed to the entertainment facilities, then went into the office inside to sleep. The lone light in the single patient room shone on all kinds of medical equipment and emitted a gentle glow. Gu Nianji sat on the sofa outside alone. She picked up the iPad and began to make a list of her assets to see which belonged to her and which belonged to Huoxiao. She planned to break up with Huoxiao, so of course she had to move out of his house. Although the house had already been transferred to her, she didn't want it. Not at all. Those things constantly reminded her that everything she had was actually his charity, and that she wasn't even on the same level as him. No matter how she looked at it, she wasn't worthy of him. She already had no love, so she couldn't lose her pride. When Huoxiao brought Yin Shixiang to the military court's secret courtroom, Bai Yueran and Zhou Qiyuan were already arguing with the judge. Judge Liao, we have all the paperwork and the evidence is conclusive. Why can't we sign the death warrant right away? Bai Yueran argued with the judge word by word about the terms of espionage. Her situation is special, and we can completely handle special cases. Director Bai, you also studied law. Don't you know that special cases are the most taboo in the law? Special cases aren't the law. Judge Liao was obviously conflicted about this case and opposed the execution of a person just like that. Judge Liao, you can't say it like that. Since when did the law prohibit special cases from being handled special cases? As long as it's allowed by the law, special cases are handled according to the law. It's legal and reasonable. Although Bai Yueran had been arguing with Judge Liao for half an hour, her attitude was still very amiable. Not only was she highly professional, but she was also very magnanimous when it came to dealing with people. She dealt with the big and let go of the small. She was soft when it needed to be soft and hard when it needed to be. Sometimes she was even more appropriate than her father, Bai Jianqing. It could be said that ever since the Special Operations Forces legal department had Bai Yueran, not only had their efficiency increased a lot, but their relationship with the other departments of the state had also improved a lot. Huoxiao listened at the door for a while before pushing it open to enter. He gestured for Yin Shixiang to bring up the supper he bought on the way. Judge Liao, Director Bai, you've worked hard. Have some supper first and take a break before we talk. Yin Shixiang had bought De Huchen's famous shrimp, pork and clams pan-fried, and Huoxiao had asked him to buy 3 baskets of it. Opening the lid of the container, the freshly cooked shrimp, pork and clams pan-fried were steaming hot. The round pan-fried dumplings had snow-white skin and looked very tender. It whetted one's appetite just by looking at it. Even Judge Liao, who had always been upright and outspoken, couldn't help but eat 3 in one go. After eating, he drank a cup of hot soy milk that he had bought along with the pan-fried dumplings. People who had been starving in the middle of the night and were extremely mentally exhausted received the nourishment of supper. Everyone felt alive again. Judge Liao was obviously easy to talk to. Huo, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but is there really no room for negotiation on this matter? Judge Liao came out after washing his hands and sat next to Huo Xiaoheng to talk in a low voice. Huo Xiaoheng sat on the sofa with his legs crossed and also looked exhausted. He said, if it's possible, I also want to slow down. But what she did was really too bad, and our Special Operations Forces was only established not long ago. If we let her off so easily this time, how are we going to carry out our work in the future? You also know that in a special organization like ours, the biggest taboo is betrayal and betrayal. More than 100 years ago, our ancestors dealt with such traitors by exterminating entire families. There was one time when our ancestors let 2 children go in a moment of soft-heartedness. In the end, the 2 children turned the tables and pointed out many of our underground workers to the enemy. In the end, even more people died. Tell me, how should we settle this debt? Judge Liao's hair stood on end from Huo Xiaoheng's words. This was the first night watch. It looked like the monthly votes would not reach 3,000 for the time being. The third night watch would have to wait for tomorrow. Then let me remind everyone about the recommendation votes. At 7 p.m. the next night. Moi. Chapter 705. Bai Yueran understood Huo Xiaoheng's meaning and said, Judge Liao, you're not a normal judge. You're a judge of our military court's secret court. You should know that your job is different from normal judges. Judge Liao was speechless. Although Mr. Huo said that we should focus on speed and efficiency, this case has actually dragged on for a long time. To be honest, we did make a mistake on this case. It took too long and we missed a lot of valuable information. Bai Yueran added further. Seeing that Judge Liao was already convinced by their carrot-and-stick tactics, she finally took out the death sentence. Would you like to sign this? Judge Liao had also been pressured by his superiors to treat this case cautiously, so he didn't dare to give in. However, Huo Xiaoheng's words had indeed scared him. He seemed to have just realized that the soldiers he was facing were not normal soldiers. Let me think about it. Judge Liao stood up. Every sentence has to be archived and sent to the Supreme Military Court for review. I've been a judge for so many years, I don't want to make any mistakes on this matter. Okay. Huo Xiaoheng stood up as well. I hope you can think it through before 6. I'll wait for you here. Judge Liao felt his straightened back bend again. He walked to his office with a hunched back and left the door ajar. Huo Xiaoheng stared at Judge Liao's office door with his hands behind his back, as if he could pressure Judge Liao through the door. Bai Yueran stood behind him and whispered, Mr. Huo, are you really going to wait here forever? I said 6, so I have to get the death sentence at 6, Huo Xiaoheng said calmly. He also wanted to know who was pressuring Judge Liao. Bai Yueran covered her mouth with her hand and yawned. Then I'll go sleep in the room next door. Call me if you need anything. Okay. Huo Xiaoheng didn't turn around. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and slowly walked towards the window. After Bai Yueran left, Yin Shixiang sat on the sofa and played with his phone. Huo Xiaoheng turned on his Bluetooth headset and ordered Zhao Liangzi, Is there surveillance on the lines at the military court? Yes, immediately. Zhao Liangzi did not follow them. Instead, he waited in the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. According to the rules, the Special Operations Forces were not allowed to intervene in domestic affairs. However, this time, those people had broken the rules and used the Special Operations Forces as a tool to intervene in domestic affairs. Of course, Huo Xiaoheng, who had never been at a disadvantage, would not let go of this opportunity. He took the opportunity to intervene in domestic affairs. He was extremely protective of his people. Whoever wanted to hurt his people, he would definitely return the favor 100 times or 1,000 times over, no matter who you were, no matter where you were, and no matter what position you were in. Perhaps it was because Huo Xiaoheng's presence was too strong, or perhaps the other party was too cautious, but as soon as he called Judge Liao, he discovered that someone was monitoring him. The phone only rang once and the other party immediately hung up. Zhao Liangzi didn't even have time to track down the caller. Judge Liao waited for 2 hours, but there were no new instructions from his superiors. He was frightened by Huo Xiaoheng's words, so he finally picked up the pen and signed the death sentence. It was 3 in the morning when Huo Xiaoheng received Yi Zitan's death sentence. It took Gu Nianji nearly 2 hours to complete the list of her assets. She looked expressionlessly at the page of records in front of her and sighed softly. No wonder people always wanted to separate them. They were indeed not suitable for each other. So many things, an astronomical amount of wealth, had never been hers in the first place. In the past she had thought that she would definitely marry Hua Xiaoheng. When the time came they would be one. Hua Xiaoheng's things would be hers, and her things would also be Hua Xiaoheng's. Therefore she had accepted it without any psychological pressure. But now that Gu Nianji thought about it in the eyes of others, or even in Hua Xiaoheng's own heart, they all thought that she was born to depend on him. So she didn't have a particularly important place in his heart, right? Important missions and comrades were ranked ahead of her. She accepted it all and didn't want to compete with Hua Xiaoheng for these rankings. She was already mentally prepared. She knew that in order to be with Hua Xiaoheng she had to accept his military side. Those were his career decisions. Otherwise he wouldn't be the person she loved. But who the hell was the Prime Minister's daughter? Bringing the Prime Minister's daughter back home was also a secret mission. You must be kidding me. Now even some random Tom, Dick and Harry were ranked ahead of her. Not only could Gu Nianji not tolerate it, but she also flipped the table. She let go of her prejudices and thought about it. She felt that she really was at odds with the Prime Minister's daughter. Whether it was the former Prime Minister's daughter, Do Qingyin, or the new Prime Minister's daughter, Tan Guirin, all of her love rivals were pampered and came from prestigious families. She was the only one who had no background and was like duckweed. Gu Nianji pouted and brushed the two of them out of her mind. If it was in the past she would have complained that these two were so well off. Why did they have to compete with her for Hua Xiao? Now she blushed just thinking about it. Everyone wanted good things. Why was it that only you could have it and not others? She couldn't compete with them so she had to accept her loss. She couldn't do something like pestering them anymore. Gu Nianji rubbed her forehead with some melancholy. Thinking about her past self, it felt like a dream. She looked down at the property list on the iPad and remembered that the keys and documents for the real estate were all in Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. The deposit receipts, tidying up, and investment accounts were all in Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. Most of her clothes, shoes, and bags were also in Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. So why did she make a list? She could just cut it in half and not go to Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. Anyway, none of the things there belonged to her. Gu Nianji smiled bitterly. She really was poor and proletarian. The only things that belonged to her were actually very few. However, she still had to take away the clothes, shoes, bags, and skincare products. Many of them were brand new and unopened. Not only were they made according to her measurements, but she also didn't want to see others wearing her clothes and shoes, carrying her bags and applying her cream. She was such a petty person. She would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. However, according to the market price, these clothes, shoes, and bags were worth the price of a two-bedroom apartment on the 5th Ring Road in the imperial capital. Gu Nianji went to check her bank account. She had a special bank account to save her salary and school subsidies. The money in it was all earned by herself, not from Hua Xiao. Because she didn't usually use money or used her card directly, and Hua Xiao was the one who paid the bills, she didn't know how much money she had in this account. Now that she looked at it, yes, although it wasn't enough to buy a two-bedroom apartment, it was more than enough for a down payment. She planned to look for a house when she returned to school. It would be best if she bought a ready house so she could move in immediately. After taking care of everything, Gu Nianji sent the list to her school email, then logged out of her email account from Qinlai's iPad to erase all traces of her login. She washed her face and went to wake Qinlai up. Qinlai slept on the table for a while and was still a bit uncomfortable when Gu Nianji woke him up. He sat there blankly for a while and rubbed his eyes to wake up. What time is it? Just 3:30. It's still dark outside. Gu Nianji looked out the window and asked Qinlai, "Brother Qin, how did I get here?" "I remember. I think I was on Professor He's plane." Qinlai was speechless. Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows and looked at Qinlai inquiringly. Qinlai frowned and walked to the small cloakroom inside to change his clothes. He mumbled, "Hua Xiao sent you here. Thanks to you, because you fainted and got injured on the plane, Hua Xiao wanted me to treat you before he let me out of the detention center." Gu Nianji was speechless. "Brother Qin, what do you mean? Why are you in the detention center?" Gu Nianji leaned against the door to talk to Qinlai. She was still wearing the clothes she had changed into on He Jichu's plane. It was a large, light gray pullover sweater and a pair of tight-fitting gray yoga pants. Her back was slender and her legs were straight and slender. Because her clothes also looked like a hospital gown, Qinlai hadn't changed her clothes after she had been sent to him. She had slept in them for the whole day. Now that she was up, the clothes didn't have any shape to begin with and didn't appear wrinkled. She pulled her hands back and tied her long loose hair into a ponytail. Chen Lai changed into a white suit and came out with several ties in one hand. He asked Gu Nianji, "Which one do you think is better?" Gu Nianji pursed her lips and pushed Chen Lai inside. "Why are you wearing a white suit? Are you afraid people won't know you're going to see her one last time? Don't you think I look better in white?" Chen Lai looked in the mirror. Gu Nianji was speechless. "Brother Chen, I think you look best in dark gray." Gu Nianji helped Chen Lai rummage through the closet and found a dark gray shirt with light vertical stripes and smoky gray formal pants. She also found a pair of leather shoes for him to change out of his sneakers. "You don't need the tie. Undo this button on your neck. Yes, roll up your sleeves." Gu Nianji helped Chen Lai dress up. Chen Lai looked in the mirror again and realized he was really different. It seemed like he really did have the aura. He sighed and thought, what's the point of dressing up to be handsome now? Even if he left a good impression on Yi Zitan, she wouldn't be able to escape death. "Brother Chen, you still haven't told me how you ended up in the detention center." Gu Nianji continued to ask. Chen Lai straightened his sleeves and didn't look up as he said, "Huo was on a mission in New York and discovered a spy. He found out the spy was sending information from us, so he locked us up." Gu Nianji was speechless. "Does it also have something to do with Yi Zitan?" Gu Nianji couldn't help asking. "Yeah. Otherwise why would he lock me up?" Chen Lai finally recovered. Thinking about Yi Zitan didn't hurt as much anymore. "Then Brother Chen, you should be fine now." Gu Nianji returned to the door and leaned against the door frame. "My condolences." Chen Lai was speechless. "Your tone is exactly like Huo's. And you said he wasn't your boyfriend?" Chen Lai teased Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji straightened her expression and said dryly, "I really wasn't. Brother Chen, I won't ask you about Yi Zitan in the future, and you also won't ask me about Mr. Huo, okay?" Huo Xiaoheng, who had just stepped into Chen Lai's office, heard this and silently turned to leave. It was the second watch. "Then I'll remind everyone about the recommendation votes. Good night." Chapter 706. Chen Lai was looking at himself in the mirror when he heard the question. He looked away in shock and looked at Gu Nianji. "Mr. Oh, when did you become so distant with Huo Xiao?" Gu Nianji shrugged. "It's only right. I was too immature in the past. He treated me just a little better and I didn't know my place. Why did I have to do that? I pestered him, but in the end he despised me." "Nianji, why do you sound so sarcastic?" Chen Lai stopped looking at himself in the mirror and walked around Gu Nianji. "Did you have a change of heart during your trip to Germany?" "You're the one who has a change of heart." Gu Nianji glanced at Chen Lai. "I've given up just like you. I've given up, understand?" Chen Lai shook his head with a regretful expression. "I don't understand. You can live a good life but you have to go through all this trouble. Do you really have to end up like me? Stop." Gu Nianji quickly stopped Chen Lai from continuing. "I'm fundamentally different from you. Don't act like Sister Xianglin. It's annoying. It's not a big deal. Brother Chen, don't say any more. I'm just being a busybody. Why would I tell you? You can't keep things to yourself. It's not even dawn yet and you're already talking about it to the entire base. I'm warning you, if a second person finds out, I'll spill everything about you." Chen Lai finally glanced at her and leaned over to whisper, "Are you serious? If it's not serious, then is it fake?" Gu Nianji turned to walk out. "I went through fire and water on this trip to Germany. Don't you know? Between life and death, people are suddenly enlightened and see many things clearly." Chen Lai sighed and muttered to himself as he followed Gu Nianji. "Some people don't know how lucky they are. Even if they want to die, I can't do anything about it. I've already tried to persuade them. I've already done my best as a friend." Gu Nianji was speechless. She could only pretend she didn't hear him. She returned to the sofa and watched Chen Lai walk out of the office. She looked down at her iPad. Chen Lai walked out of the office and looked at the dark sky outside the long corridor. He sighed deeply and turned to walk to the elevator. At the elevator entrance, she saw Huo Xiaoheng smoking by the window with his back facing the hallway. His figure was tall and his back was straight. His shoulders were broad and strong and he wore a wide belt. Below his muscular waist were long legs. However, even such a handsome and capable Huo Xiao would be dumped one day. Chen Lai suddenly felt very relieved and a little more confident. He straightened his back and coughed. "Huo Xiao is back? Why don't you come in and take a seat? I'm going to see Dr. Yi." Huo Xiaoheng ignored him and continued to smoke outside the window. Chen Lai frowned. "If you want to smoke, go outside. Strictly speaking, this is a non-smoking area. Although there are windows." Huo Xiaoheng stopped smoking, but he held the cigarette in one hand and continued to look out the window. Yin Shixiang stood behind him, his thick eyebrows and big eyes almost wrinkling his handsome face. Qinlai waved at Yin Shixiang and entered the elevator to where Yi Zitan was being held. After Qinlai left, Yin Shixiang finally couldn't help but ask quietly, "Hua Xiao, what's wrong with Nianji?" When Gu Nianji had called him Mr. Hua, Yin Shixiang had been shocked to the core. It was as if he had seen his precious daughter suddenly turn her back on her father. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at him and looked down. He said dryly, "She's probably still sick. You have to take medicine if you're sick. Otherwise you'll scare people to death." Yin Shixiang scratched the back of his head. "Then, are you still going in?" Hua Xiaoheng threw the remaining half of his cigarette into the trash can under the windowsill and lit another. "Yeah, wait for me to finish this one." Yin Shixiang looked at the first cigarette he had just thrown into the trash, then at the second cigarette in Hua Xiaoheng's hand. He decided to shut up. Yi Zitan didn't sleep. She couldn't. The last dinner she had was much more generous than usual. She knew it was over, she hadn't expected it to happen so soon. After dinner she took a good shower and changed into her favorite clothes. She sat at the foot of the bed and waited for the sun to rise. When it was almost 4 in the morning, the guard came in to say that Qinlai had come to see her. Yi Zitan smiled bitterly and walked out of her room. She went to the interrogation room with the glass wall between them. Qinlai was very well dressed and very elegant. He stood in front of the glass wall and looked at her with a serious expression. When he saw her come in, he nodded and said, "Dr. Yi, this is the last time I'm here to see you. I want to know if you can tell me what they used to move you to the point that you lost even the most basic humanity." Yi Zitan hadn't expected Qinlai to say that. Her face turned completely white. Her lips opened and closed. After a long pause, she said in a trembling voice, "You don't understand. You don't understand. Their technology is so much more advanced than ours. We can't catch up and you can't either. Dr. Yi, this is the difference between you and me. I never thought that anyone could be better than us. If there was, we would surpass them in the future. No one will be number one forever. Everyone is constantly improving and developing in a spiral manner while trying to catch up with each other." Qinlai pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "I'm sorry that you're actually such an unscrupulous person." Yi Zitan finally couldn't take it anymore and burst into tears. She regretted it now, but it was too late. There was no cure for regret in this world. She covered her face and cried her heart out. Qinlai didn't say anything and quietly listened to her cry. He waited for her to finish before saying, "The fact that you can still cry means that you know you were wrong. When you meet those 2 field comrades in the afterlife, remember to say sorry to them. Also say sorry to them for me." Yi Zitan trembled all over. Am I going to die?" Qinlai didn't say anything. He couldn't bear to look away. Yi Zitan's head leaned against the glass wall. She was shaking like a leaf in the wind. After a while she looked up at Qinlai. "I've let them down. If I see them, I'll definitely apologize to them." She paused and asked, "What about Nianji? Is she okay?" "She's fine. She just woke up." Qinlai nodded. "Luckily she's fine. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from killing you." Yi Zitan looked at him with a bitter smile. "Dr. Qin, I want to see Nianji and say sorry to her personally. She would only have the chance to apologize to those 2 field agents after she died. Gu Nianji, on the other hand, only wanted to say sorry to them while she was still alive. This might be Yi Zitan's last wish in this life." Qinlai thought about it. "Wait." He walked out and called Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, Dr. Yi said she wants to see Nianji. What do you think?" Hua Xiaoheng was still smoking in front of the window beside the elevator when Qinlai's voice came through his Bluetooth headset. He thought about it for a while and said, "Let her see him." He glanced at Yin Shixiang behind him. "Take Nianji to see Yi Zitan." There were audio and video recordings in the interrogation room anyway. He wanted to see what Yi Zitan would say to Nianji. Nianji was so smart. He didn't know if she would lure the mastermind behind Yi Zitan out. "Roger, Chief." Yin Shixiang thought so too. Yin Shixiang hurried to Qinlai's office and saw Gu Nianji still playing games on her iPad. He quickly waved at her. "Nianji, Dr. Yi wants to see you. Come with me." Gu Nianji was a bit surprised. She put down the iPad and straightened her clothes. She called out crisply, "Brother Xiong, long time no see." Then she got up and briskly walked to the door. "Why does Dr. Yi want to see me?" "I don't know either. Dr. Qin just called to ask Hua Xiao and he approved." Yin Shixiang said as he secretly observed Gu Nianji's expression. In the past, Gu Nianji would definitely smile like a flower when he mentioned Hua Xiao. Today, however, she was very calm and didn't show any emotion. Yin Shixiang scratched his head and didn't dare bring it up again. Gun Yanji followed Yin Shixiang to the elevator. When they entered, she saw that Yin Shixiang was still looking around. "Brother Xiong, what are you looking for?" Yin Shixiang opened his mouth, but when he recalled Gun Yanji calling him Mr. Hua, he decided to keep his mouth shut. He smiled and said, "I'm seeing if anyone else is coming. If not, I'll close the elevator." Gun Yanji pouted. It was 4 in the morning. Why would there be so many people taking the elevator at this time? He didn't even know how to find a reasonable excuse. She didn't say anything else and quickly followed Yin Shixiang to the interrogation room. Qinlai was waiting for them at the door. When he saw Gun Yanji, he grabbed her arm and went in with her. Yin Shixiang stood guard at the door. In the interrogation room, Yi Zitan was already curled up against the glass wall. She looked very haggard. Gun Yanji quietly walked over. Seeing Yi Zitan like this, she also felt bad. Gun Yanji coughed and said, "Dr. Yi?" Yi Zitan slowly looked up. Her eyes lit up when she saw Gun Yanji. She quickly stood up with the help of the glass wall and stared at Gun Yanji. Her gaze was so passionate that it bordered on greed. "Yanji? Are you really okay? It's great that you're okay. Yanji, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made a deal with you for the experimental data." Her voice was high-pitched and had a different kind of emotion and excitement than usual. Gun Yanji was speechless. What could she say? Thank her for not killing her? So she could only stay silent. Yi Zitan's emotions were extremely unstable. She looked at Gun Yanji through the glass wall and cried and laughed at the same time. "Yanji, the person I'm most sorry to is you. You're actually more pitiful than me. I shouldn't have cooperated with others to hurt you. I still remember that time you were raped to that state. You were covered in cuts and bruises. I felt so bad when I saw it. How could I pour salt on your wounds? I must have been possessed." Gun Yanji's expression gradually darkened. She stiffly interrupted Yi Zitan. "Dr. Yi, do you know what you're saying? What do you mean by raped?" "I didn't." Zhao Liangzi, who was recording the entire process in the central control room, saw this and immediately turned off all the recording and video equipment. He quickly notified Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, listen to what Yi Zitan is saying to Yanji." Yi Zitan's crying and laughing voice could be heard from Hua Xiaoheng's Bluetooth headset. "That time you were raped to that state? Mother asterisk Kerr. You're asking for it." Hua Xiaoheng, who was usually as calm as a mountain, suddenly threw away the cigarette in his hand and cursed. "This is the first chapter. Seeing how anxious everyone is, today is the third chapter. Monthly votes of 3,000 will be added in advance. Also, let me remind everyone of the recommendation votes. Monthly votes of 3,000 for the second chapter will be added in advance at 1 p.m., and the third chapter will be at 7 p.m. P.S. I'm not a full-time writer. I still have a very busy full-time job. I can guarantee 2 chapters a day of 5,000 to 6,000 words. If I want more chapters, I hope everyone can motivate me with monthly votes. After all, I can only sleep for 3 to 4 hours between the third and fourth chapters. I can't live like this forever. Let's understand each other and not hurt each other, okay?" Chapter 707. Hua Xiaoheng entered the elevator with a solemn expression as he spoke to Zhao Liangzi through his Bluetooth headset. Inform the execution team to execute her immediately. Zhao Liangzi looked at his watch. It was only 4:30 in the morning. Prisoners were usually executed at noon, but Yi Zitan had drawn a death sentence for herself. She wanted to die so badly. When the prison executed prisoners, they would usually be given a good last meal and would be given a few sets of clothes they liked according to the prisoners' requests. Usually when there was food, drink and clothes they liked, the prisoners would know that it meant, it's time. In the interrogation room of the disciplinary team, Gun Yanji looked at Yi Zitan with a dark expression and said coldly, "Dr. Yi, that's enough. I originally thought that a dying man's words were kind, so I came to see you for the last time. But listen to what you're saying. Do you sound human? No wonder you would betray your comrades in exchange for benefits. People like you will never be number one in medicine. You're always trying to be opportunistic and steal other people's things for your own achievements. Shame on you." Gun Yanji's words hit the weakest spot in Yi Zitan's heart. To her, the desire for medical breakthroughs had already become her obsession. Just like the Japanese doctors in the infamous 731 unit, they didn't hesitate to use real people for human experiments in order to pursue breakthroughs in technology. The demon doctors in Unit 731 didn't treat the Chinese as humans. Instead, they treated them as animals. They even treated them as pieces of wood and stones. They were just a group of experimental data, not living humans who could cry and feel pain like they did. What was the big deal about betraying comrades? When necessary, they would even betray their ancestors, family, and even themselves. Haha, you'll never understand how much more powerful they are than us. You were able to escape death this time, but you won't be so lucky next time. You can't escape. They've got their eyes on you. You'll never escape. Yi Zitan was almost driven insane by Gun Yanji's words. She raised her hands and laughed loudly like she had gone crazy. Gun Yanji sneered and crossed her arms in disdain. Dr. Yi, don't waste your energy. It's useless to pretend to be mentally ill. I'm a lawyer and I can tell you responsibly that mental illness can't be used as an excuse for espionage. Yi Zitan's maniacal laughter stopped abruptly, and she glared at Gun Yanji with bloodshot eyes. Her neatly combed hair was now a mess and she indeed looked like a lunatic. You don't believe me? Gun Yanji was full of confidence when it came to her profession. Espionage is not a normal crime. It requires the criminal to have absolute mental control and the ability to act. Therefore, people who can commit espionage cannot be mentally ill. Conversely, it was impossible for a psychopath to successfully carry out espionage. You'd better save it. Your master behind the scenes has obviously given up on you. You're just a lowly little minion. You're the kind of idiot who would wave the flag and cheer for your master before your execution. No, they said that I'm very important to them. I'm their only informant in the Special Operations Forces. Yi Zitan shook her head furiously as if she could deny Gun Yanji's words if she shook her head hard enough. Gun Yanji snorted. She propped up one hand and tapped her right cheek with her slender fingers. Keep numbing yourself. You're their only informant? How could you believe something like that? I really admire those people now. They really know how to look for weaknesses in human nature. To you, Dr. Yi, the usual tools of bribery, money and handsome men, definitely won't work. So what can they do to turn you against them? They can only target your eagerness to reach the pinnacle of medical technology. Don't be so smug. Do you think you can escape again after escaping this time? Yi Zitan gave up and glared at Gun Yanji. She looked like a completely different person from when she was crying and remorseful. She had originally wanted to sincerely apologize to Gun Yanji, but she hadn't expected Gun Yanji's words to be so sharp. Yi Zitan's apology instantly vanished. Haha, do you think I'm stupid? If they were that powerful, they wouldn't have turned you against them to track my whereabouts. If Gun Yanji wasn't capable herself, she would have been buried under the Alps a long time ago. Gun Yanji had to rely on herself to escape that time. Although she was very sad, she also had confidence in her own abilities. Although failure was the mother of success, only success could give birth to self-confidence. Chunlai was so shocked that he almost fainted when he heard Yi Zitan tell him about the first time Gun Yanji had been infected with H3ob7 and how Huashao had spun her around in circles to the point where it was too horrible to look at. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He was only glad that he had held back and didn't tell Yi Zitan the whole truth. Yi Zitan only knew that Gun Yanji had been drugged to that extent, but she didn't know it was because she had been infected with H3ob7. She only thought it was a normal aphrodisiac. She also didn't know it was Huashao. Luckily she didn't know. Otherwise Huashao would have been even worse. Huashao, this is as far as I can help you, Chunlai thought silently and was about to pull Gun Yanji away when he saw Gun Yanji's face darken and immediately take control of the conversation. Under her provocation, Yi Zitan almost went crazy. Chunlai didn't say anything. He pricked up his ears and carefully listened to their confrontation. He also wanted to know who the they Yi Zitan mentioned were. But just as Yi Zitan pounced on the glass wall and wanted to punch through it to fight Gun Yanji, Zhou Qiyuan's voice sounded from outside the door. Time's up. The criminal is going to the execution ground. Chunlai. Gun Yanji, the two of them looked at each other blankly. The door to the interrogation room opened, and Yin Shixiang waved at Gun Yanji. Yanji, come out quickly. Gun Yanji saw a tall, thin man standing at the door. He looked very ordinary, the kind that would be hard to pick out in a crowd. But occasionally that person's gaze swept over, and his gaze was so sharp it made people shiver. Gun Yanji's heart skipped a beat. This person was so powerful, how come she had never seen him before? This person was one of Hua Xiaoheng's two other secret personal secretaries, Zhou Qiyuan. He was also the person in charge of the Special Operations Forces disciplinary team. Chunlai pushed Gun Yanji, and the two of them quickly walked out of the interrogation room. Big Xiong, it's not even noon yet. Are you going to execute her now? Chunlai asked with a frown. He looked behind Yin Shixiang and didn't see Hua Xiaoheng. He suspected it was Hua Xiaoheng's idea. It was indeed Hua Xiaoheng's idea. When he heard Yi Zitan tell Gun Yanji about that incident, he cursed himself for making the same mistake as his grandfather for being soft-hearted. In their line of work, being soft-hearted was a big taboo. If he had shot Yi Zitan a long time ago, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. The Special Operations Forces execution team arrived at the execution ground. It was only 5 in the morning, and the sky was about to brighten. The first rays of dawn had just appeared, and the air carried the chill of late autumn. The Special Operations Forces execution ground was in a valley surrounded by fiery red maple leaves. The grass there was greener than anywhere else. Yi Zitan was brought to the execution ground with a hood over her head. A tall man wearing sunglasses and a mask covered himself completely. He walked in front of Yi Zitan, pulled off her hood, and used an iris scanner to scan her iris. Then he ordered someone to lift her hand and check her fingerprints. He also took a drop of blood from her fingertip and put it on file. After verifying her identity, he pushed her to the execution ground and stood with her back facing the executioner. Yi Zitan's legs had already turned to jelly, and she couldn't stand up at all. She could only kneel on the grass. The moment the sun rose, the executioner took out his gun, aimed it in Yi Zitan's direction and pulled the trigger. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The sound of bullets echoed in the air above the execution ground. The executioner emptied a magazine, calmly changed to another one and continued shooting. In the end he only finished after changing 3 magazines. Yin Shixiang watched the entire process from the small room of the execution ground. After the executioner finished shooting and confirmed that Yi Zitan was dead, he threw the gun to the soldiers on the execution ground and turned to walk back into the small room. Yin Shixiang watched silently as the executioner took off his gloves and threw them into the trash can. He respectfully handed a wet tissue to the executioner to wipe his hands. So the executioner was actually Hua Xiaoheng. With his status he had personally come to execute Yi Zitan. It was clear how angry he was at what Yi Zitan had done. Yin Shixiang didn't know what to say, so he could only awkwardly try to find something to say. Hua Xiao, why did you shoot so many times? Usually 1 shot is enough, 2 at most. Hua Xiaoheng took off his sunglasses and said calmly, I'm not good at shooting, so I shot a few more times. Yin Shixiang immediately knelt down. Let me tell a joke. Hua Xiao said his shooting skills were not good. Do you believe it? I don't believe it equals under smiley face. This is the 2nd monthly pass of 3,000 early updates. It's the 3rd update today. Also, I want to remind everyone of the recommendation votes. 7 p.m. of the 3rd update. Chapter 708. Yi Zitan was taken away, and Gun Yanji and Qinlai also left the Department of Discipline building. Qinlai was in a daze the whole way. He couldn't focus at all. In the end, he didn't want to go back to the office and said to Gun Yanji, I'm going back to my dorm to rest for a while. Yanji, can you go back to the ward alone? Although Gun Yanji no longer had a fever, Qinlai was still worried. He wanted to keep her under observation for 2 more days, so he didn't allow her to leave the hospital for now. Gun Yanji nodded. Brother Qin, have a good rest. She continued, when you're done resting, can I go back to school? Okay, we'll talk about it when I get back. Qinlai waved without looking back and turned to another path back to the dormitory. Gun Yanji returned to Qinlai's office alone and sat down in the single room outside. She let out a long sigh. Yi Zitan had been taken away and would probably never return. Gun Yanji thought about it carefully and realized that she didn't have any extra sympathy for her. Perhaps she really didn't light up the Holy Mother's skill point 4, hitting the left side of the face and offering the right side up. Perhaps Yi Zitan's last words had wiped out the last bit of sympathy she had left. She leaned back on the sofa and covered her forehead with the back of her hand, thinking silently. Although Gun Yanji had rebutted Yi Zitan's last words on the spot, it was impossible for her not to suspect anything. That time, you were raped to that state, and you were covered in bruises all over. Yi Zitan's words echoed in Gun Yanji's ears over and over again. As she recalled the past, her face gradually turned pale. Gun Yanji remembered very clearly that although she had been drugged with an aphrodisiac at her university classmate Feng Yishi's birthday party, she had sought out Qinlai before the drug had taken effect. Qinlai had brought her to the Special Operations Forces base in Sea City. She just couldn't remember what happened after she arrived at the Special Operations Forces base. By the time she woke up, it was already 2 weeks later, and she had also missed Hijichu's interview because of this. If what Yi Zitan said was true, then she could only have been raped during the period when she lost her memory at the Special Operations Forces base. However, the Special Operations Forces base was Hua Xiao's territory. How could something like that happen? Gu Nianji felt that Yi Zitan wasn't telling the truth, no matter if it was logical or logical. But Yi Zitan also swore that she saw her covered in wounds, and that after she woke up, it was indeed Yi Zitan who took care of her. What the hell was going on? Also, she clearly remembered that her first time was with Huo. Her thoughts suddenly flew to her first time with Huo. It didn't seem to have been on the bed, but in the bathtub? That was strange. Then did she bleed? Actually, not much time had passed, but she couldn't remember the details. Rubbing her forehead in frustration, she picked up the iPad on the sofa and started playing games. When she was in a bad mood, only games could divert her attention. When Huo Xiaoheng returned from the execution ground, he couldn't help but go to the medical building at the military base. He brought Yin Shixiang to the floor where Qinlai's office was and paced around the elevator for a while. Yin Shixiang followed behind her for a few steps and suddenly had an idea. He thought, is Nianji arguing with Huo? So Huo never went to see Nianji? Then what was he going to do? To be a big light bulb? Huo would be embarrassed even if he wanted to coax Nianji. Yin Shixiang decided not to go. Huo, I'll go see how little Zhe is doing. Can you go to Dr. Chen's office alone? Huo Xiaoheng didn't turn around and waved his hand to indicate that it was okay. Yin Shixiang sighed in relief and ran to find Zhao Liangzi with a face full of gossip. Gu Nianji, who had always listened to Huo Xiaoheng like a god, had finally rebelled. Yin Shixiang was so excited that he couldn't help but want to share it with someone. He couldn't be the only one scared. Little Zhe had to be scared too. It was better to scare everyone than to scare him alone. The distance from the elevator to Qinlai's office was only about 10 meters, but Huo Xiaoheng felt like he had walked for a long time. When he reached the door, he quietly looked at it and opened it after a while. Gu Nianji was playing on the iPad on the sofa when she heard the door open. She thought it was Qinlai coming back and didn't look up. Brother Qin, why are you back so soon? Did you rest well? No one spoke at the door. Gu Nianji suddenly felt the air become heavy. She looked up in surprise but didn't see Qinlai. Instead, she saw Huo Xiaoheng standing at the door. The lights in the hallway shone from behind him and cast a tall silhouette. He stood at the door, his deep, dark eyes staring at her without moving. How long had it been since they last saw each other? Gu Nianji couldn't figure it out at the moment. She looked at him but realized that she didn't feel as elated as she used to when she saw him. On the contrary, as soon as she saw him, she recalled the scene when he and Tang Guirin got off the plane. That casual smile, the way he subconsciously helped her up, and the way he accepted the bouquet, all the scenes flashed through Gu Nianji's mind. What little was left of her nostalgia was instantly shattered. She originally thought that when she saw him again she would cry and make a fuss. She would vent all her grievances before breaking up with him, but she realized that her heart was as calm as a mirror. She nodded at Huo Xiaoheng. Mr. Huo is here. Huo Xiaoheng looked up at her. Nianji, must you be so distant? Then call you Uncle Huo? Familiar enough, right? Huo Xiaoheng felt a lump in his throat. The corners of his lips couldn't help twitching. He finally walked in and closed the door. Walking to Gu Nianji, he asked calmly, "Are you feeling better?" "Yes, much better. Thank you for your concern." Gu Nianji turned off the iPad and stood up to give Huo Xiaoheng her seat. "Please sit. Do you want some tea? Or coffee?" Huo Xiaoheng put his hands in his trouser pockets and continued to ask her, "Do you feel unwell anywhere?" "No, I'm fine." Gu Nianji was polite. "Thank you for bringing me to Brother Chen's place." Huo Xiaoheng sighed and his voice became even lower. "Nianji, don't be like this. I'm just like that. I'm sorry, but I don't fit your expectations." Gu Nianji turned around and looked at Huo Xiaoheng with clear eyes. "I actually have something to talk to Mr. Huo about. I originally thought that you were so busy that it would take a year and a half before you could take the time to see a nobody like me. I didn't expect to see you in just one day." "Stop it." Huo Xiaoheng reached out to hold Gu Nianji's hand. "You know that I'm always free to you. I really don't know when you'll be free." Gu Nianji took a step back and Huo Xiaoheng's hand missed. Gu Nianji thought she would cry but she didn't. She didn't want to be too sarcastic and make it seem like she was jealous. She didn't want to continue leaving that impression on Huo Xiaoheng. Perhaps it was because Huo Xiaoheng's impression of her was too poor, so no matter how hard she tried, he only thought she was throwing a tantrum. She had risked her life in Germany, but he only left the impression of her as throwing a tantrum. Gu Nianji finally felt her heart ache. Her nose felt dry and tears gathered in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Lowering her head and taking 2 deep breaths, Gu Nianji recalled what Yi Zitan had said. The question that had been rolling around in her mind just now couldn't come out when she faced Huo Xiaoheng. It wasn't that she was embarrassed, but Gu Nianji subconsciously felt that with Hua Xiaoheng's abilities, he could easily fool her. So if she really wanted to find the answer, she definitely shouldn't start with Hua Xiaoheng. She should start with Qinlai. Qinlai had a big mouth, so it would be much easier to get information from him than from Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji was lost in her thoughts, and Hua Xiaoheng grabbed her hand. She quickly struggled. Let go. Nianji, let's talk this out. Hua Xiaoheng used a bit of strength to pull her back to sit on the sofa. Gu Nianji used more strength and finally broke free from his hand. Turning around, she took the iPad and hugged it. She thought she should cut the Gordian knot quickly. It was better to get the pain over with than to prolong it. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji, who was inches away from him. He really wanted to hug her, but seeing that she was about to explode at the slightest touch, he restrained himself. They hadn't seen each other for a few months, yet she was like this when they met again. Hua Xiaoheng propped up his elbow and leaned against the sofa's armrest. His long legs stretched out lazily, and his other arm was draped over the back of the sofa behind Gu Nianji, wrapping his arms around her. Gu Nianji turned those words over in her mind a few times. Looking down, she finally said with difficulty, "Mr. Hua, thank you for taking care of me all these years. I'm very grateful." Nianji, look at me. What did I teach you in the past? It's impolite not to look into the other person's eyes when you speak, Hua Xiaoheng said calmly. He quietly sat closer to Gu Nianji. It was the third watch, and it was the third watch today. Also, a reminder for everyone's recommendation votes. Good night, everyone. Chapter 709. It was still the familiar doting tone and deep, seductive voice. In the past, Gu Nianji's legs would turn to jelly just hearing Hua Xiaoheng speak like this, not to mention looking at his mesmerizing eyes. He looked at her so intently, as if she were the only thing he was interested in the world. But what was the truth? Gu Nianji shook her head lightly and looked up to meet Hua Xiaoheng's gaze. Her eyes were also very large, and when she looked at you, you could even see the reflection in her eyes. Now, those soul-stirring eyes were as clear as an autumn lake with a hint of blue, but they didn't have the intoxication and joy that he was familiar with in the past. Hua Xiaoheng's heart sank. Gu Nianji looked at him and smiled. In Mr. Hua's eyes, am I still that insensible child? Of course not. Hua Xiaoheng looked away and sat closer to her. Then in Mr. Hua's eyes, what kind of person am I? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Of course he knew what kind of person she was. She was obedient to the point of being well-behaved, smart, and very kind, compassionate, and righteous. All in all, he had raised her, so how could he not know what kind of person she was? Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything and reached out to caress the long hair behind her back. Gu Nianji looked away and took a step back. Seeing that Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak, Gu Nianji could only speak to herself. In Mr. Hua's eyes, am I an obedient little girl, smart, kind, and compassionate? It was the same as Hua Xiaoheng thought. The corners of his lips curled up and he replied in a low voice, Ha! Gu Nianji laughed helplessly. See, this is the difference between us. Straightening her sleeves, Gu Nianji took another step back, almost to the side of the sofa. Actually, I'm not like this. I'm like this because I know you like it, so I act like this in front of you. See, didn't you believe me? Hua Xiaoheng stopped and placed his hand on the back of the sofa behind Gu Nianji. Didn't you? Of course not. Actually, I'm not an obedient person. If you spend more time with my classmates as well as the professors and teachers at school, you'll know that Gu Nianji has never been an obedient person. I like to question authority and challenge the impossible. I'm smart, but I'm also stubborn. When I'm stubborn, I'm so stubborn that people want to beat me up. I actually have a very bad temper and I turn hostile as quickly as flipping a book. Mr. Hua, you should be happy because my petty temper and petty thoughts have never been used on you. Hua Xiaoheng didn't know if he should be happy or sad. He frowned and said indifferently, Who doesn't have a temper? I know that you have these small problems, but in my eyes they are not problems. Gu Nianji smiled. Yeah, you're a magnanimous person. Of course you don't care about my small problems. But they are a part of me. I am petty and possessive. There are some things that I would rather smash than share with others. Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything else. He only looked at her deeply, and his furrowed brows didn't loosen for a moment. Gu Nianji picked up the iPad and slid her fingers across the smooth glass-like screen. Her voice was cold, like the icicles that formed in the Alps during the Ice Age. Every word she spat out pierced Hua Xiaoheng's cold heart. Mr. Hua, you feel that my attitude has changed and that we're distant, but do you know why? Hua Xiaoheng maintained his position on the sofa, but he sat closer to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji had already retreated to the other end of the sofa and had nowhere else to go. Hua Xiaoheng's tall body pressed over and encircled her in the corner of the sofa. Gu Nianji was lost in her memories. She didn't seem to care about his actions, or perhaps she didn't even realize what he was doing. Those two people pretending to be police officers stuffed me into Seth's car. I thought I was dead for sure. I know better than most people what kind of person Seth is. When he dealt with Li Haiqing, he would absolutely torture him to death. But I was lucky and actually woke up unscathed. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's eyes twitched uncontrollably. I took advantage of Seth's evil intentions to kick him and injure him, then I escaped from the car. At the time it was raining heavily outside and I was panicking on the narrow mountain roads in the Alps. I didn't dare to steal a car because there were cliffs on both sides of the road. I was afraid I would fall off the cliff before I could even get out. But in the end I still jumped off the cliff because I had nowhere to run. Hua Xiaoheng's lips pressed into a thin line, and his heart was beating very hard. This level of danger was nothing to him, but Gu Nianji was different. She had never experienced such danger before. Although he had taught her some survival skills in the wild, it had never included survival training that involved jumping off cliffs, which was extremely difficult for Special Forces soldiers. At the time I was still thinking that I might never see you again. Gu Nianji calmly recounted the deep feelings of the past as if she were telling someone else's story. Hua Xiaoheng took another step closer and wrapped his arms around her, wanting her to lean into his embrace. However, Gu Nianji didn't lean in. She still sat upright and stared straight ahead, as if she could see that rainy night in the Alps. Later when I woke up they still didn't let me go. They hung 4 fake police officers from the cliffs to hunt me down. I could only continue running for my life. Along the way I slept in the open and fought with wild beasts every day. Luckily I met a cute little black bear. It helped me a lot. Gu Nianji sniffled. I miss it. Hua Xiaoheng clenched his fists. He placed one hand on Gu Nianji's shoulder and the other on her arm. He only needed to use a little strength to lift her up and place her on his lap. However, Gu Nianji's entire body was stiff and straight. Her pale face was like exquisite porcelain, and he didn't dare to use too much strength in case he crushed her. I didn't even dare to call you guys when I was being hunted down by those people because I was afraid it would affect your work. I had no other choice but to call Brother Chen's cell phone. I didn't expect that one call would cause 2 field agents to lose their lives. Gu Nianji's nasal voice became even more pronounced. Hua Xiaoheng knew that she was feeling guilty. He patted her shoulder. Don't be sad. It's not your fault. I didn't kill them but they died because of me. How can I not feel guilty? Gu Nianji asked seriously. She looked up and realized that Hua Xiaoheng was already sitting so close to her. His body was steaming hot, radiating her with his aura. Gu Nianji looked at him and her expression had already calmed down. I was in such a dangerous situation, but I couldn't bear to trouble you guys. But what about you? What were you doing at that time? Watching the sea with the Prime Minister's daughter, or listening to the rain with her? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. I'm not blaming you. I know that was a mission given to you by the higher-ups. Even though the mission was F***ed up in my opinion. Gu Nianji cursed rudely. Hua Xiaoheng instinctively wanted to correct her, but after thinking about it carefully she wasn't wrong. The mission after that was F***ed up. He patted her back and said, I'm sorry. She was struggling to survive in the wilderness and yearned for his rescue, but what about him? No wonder she was so sad. Hua Xiaoheng took a deep breath and didn't explain the dangerous situation he had been in. A mistake was a mistake. There was no need to find excuses. You don't have to apologize to me. Really. Gu Nianji took out the gift she had originally planned to give Hua Xiaoheng, the Zippo lighter. Then I met Reinitz and ALS. I didn't investigate and fell into their trap. But after I realized it, I didn't let them have it easy. Gu Nianji played with the Zippo lighter in her hand and glanced at Hua Xiaoheng. I broke into their system and wiped out their entire intelligence network. Did you guys receive those emails? Yes. Hua Xiaoheng gripped her shoulders tightly and noticed that she had lost a lot of weight. Her soft, round, and almost boneless shoulders were now frighteningly thin in his hands. Thank you. Although the precious information had been delayed for 3 days and caused them to lose many opportunities to eliminate the traitor, the information contained in the documents marked as top secret was enough for them to study for 10 years. You're welcome. You guys have protected me for so many years. This is the last thing I can do for you guys. As Gu Nianji spoke, she pulled Hua Xiaoheng's hand away and placed the lighter in his palm. This lighter was originally meant to be a gift for you. It saved my life, so it's the last gift I'll give you. You don't mind that it's already old, right? Hua Xiaoheng looked at the lighter that still carried Gun Yanji's warmth. His arms tightened and he finally hugged Gun Yanji tightly. His extreme guilt and indescribable discomfort were all poured into this indescribable hug. Gun Yanji closed her eyes and stretched out her arms to pat his back. It's okay. I don't mind anymore. Without your guidance all these years, I wouldn't have made it out of the Alps alive. No matter what, I'm very grateful to you. The more polite she was, the more distant they were. Hua Xiaoheng's heart ached. He suddenly lifted her chin and was about to kiss her curvy lips. Gun Yanji didn't dodge or hide. She just looked at him, her clear eyes reflecting his tense expression. He actually couldn't continue kissing her. Their lips were inches apart, and they could feel each other's hot breaths on their lips and the corners of their eyes. They were so close, but it seemed like there was an invisible wall between them. When I was electrocuted by ALS, I really couldn't take it anymore. I thought about your embrace and that you would come to save me. That way it wouldn't hurt as much. But after I was saved by Reinitz, I saw you and the Prime Minister's daughter. I felt like it was better to continue being electrocuted in the bar. Hua Xiaoheng's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. He buried her head in his chest and hugged her with all his strength. Gun Yanji's tears flowed. Hua Xiaoheng, let's break up. This was the first time. Chapter 710. She really wanted to break up. These words suddenly flashed through Hua Xiaoheng's mind. All these years, Gun Yanji had called him Uncle Hua, Hua Xiao, and Mr. Hua, but this was the first time she had called him by his full name. This was the first time he had heard his name come out of her mouth, but it was because she wanted to break up with him. Hua Xiaoheng's feelings were very complicated. He instinctively hugged her tighter and pressed his cheek against the top of her head. Yanji, I know you're very sad and heartbroken. Don't make any decisions at a time like this, okay? Hua Xiaoheng patted her back again and again. He could feel her trembling as she tried to hold back her sobs. His heart ached for her. Gun Yanji sniffled and pushed herself up from Hua Xiaoheng's arms. She looked at his solemn expression and said, I'm not at my most sad and heartbroken right now. I thought about it for a long time before I made this decision. As she spoke, Gun Yanji opened the iPad she had been holding in her hand and pulled up the inventory of her assets. These are all things you've given me all these years. Actually, I shouldn't have accepted them, so I'm returning them to you. Gun Yanji pointed at the real estate, deposit receipts, and investment accounts. However, I won't be returning the clothes, shoes, bags, and skincare products you bought for me. I don't like people using my things. Hua Xiaoheng knew that Gun Yanji's heart was broken when Jichu had listened to the recording of Gun Yanji's heart-wrenching crying on the plane yesterday through the intercom. He had been mentally prepared for Gun Yanji to break up, but he hadn't expected her to bring it up so quickly. She had even quickly divided up their assets. Once a girl with a high IQ detached herself from the little whirlpool of love and romance, she was so calm that it made people look at her in a new light. Hua Xiaoheng felt pity and love for Gun Yanji when she was like this, but he also felt a bit guilty. It was just that Gun Yanji had the final say in the beginning of their relationship, but she didn't have the final say in the end. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips, his tightened jaw revealing an unquestionable determination. He continued to hold her in his arms as he listened to her words that pierced his heart. Leaning over, he lifted her chin with one hand and gently pecked her pink, curvy lips. His deep, melodious voice was like a seductive demon. Yanji, I know. I know everything. No one will use your things. It's all yours. All of it, it's all yours. Tears streamed down Gun Yanji's face as she tried to pry his hand away from her chin, but she couldn't move it. She could only raise her head and allow him to kiss her again and again. Was he treating her like a child again? Every time he made her sad, all he had to do was kiss her, hug her, and lift her up high, and everything would be fine, right? Gun Yanji was furious. When he kissed her again, she suddenly opened her mouth and pounced on him like a little leopard. She bit down hard on his lower lip. Her neat, white teeth immediately left a row of tiny teeth marks on his lower lip. She bit down so hard that she only loosened her teeth when she felt a sweet taste on the tip of her tongue. It was bleeding. The two of them were so close that their breaths mingled. He was panting lightly, but she was as tense as a little animal. She was completely wary of him. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes gradually darkened. How could he stop loving her just like that? Did he ask him? His right hand seemed to have a mind of its own as it circled around the back of Gun Yanji's neck. Hua Xiaoheng lowered his head and kissed her again. Gun Yanji became even angrier. She opened her mouth, and the two rows of white teeth were about to bite him again. However, Hua Xiaoheng held her lips tightly and sucked hard. Taking advantage of her opening her mouth to bite him, he held her cheeks like a pair of iron pincers. Just like that, his tongue invaded her mouth, hooked onto the tip of her delicate tongue and continued to linger. Gu Nianji moaned and struggled in Huo Xiaoheng's arms. She couldn't push him away with her arms, so she even used her legs. She stretched out her long legs, but Huo Xiaoheng's other hand pressed them down and pushed them forward. Just like that, he pushed her onto the sofa, and her long legs hung right around his thin waist. Gu Nianji immediately realized she was wrong again. Competing with Huo Xiaoheng's physical strength was stupid. Not to mention the fact that Gu Nianji was no match for Huo Xiaoheng. Even if they fought, Gu Nianji would be taken down by Huo Xiaoheng with one hand. In a panic, Gu Nianji began to cry out in pain. "Let me go. My arm is about to break. It hurts." The video of ALS electrocuting Gu Nianji immediately appeared in Huo Xiaoheng's mind. His entire body froze. After a while, he finally calmed down and sat up from the sofa with Gu Nianji in his arms. Gu Nianji quickly pushed him away and stood up from the sofa. "Huo Xiaoheng, we broke up. You can't just hug me and kiss me whenever you want." Huo Xiaoheng looked up at her, his eyes dark and bottomless. "Did you hear me? Say something." Gu Nianji glared at Huo Xiaoheng. "Do you agree or not?" Huo Xiaoheng panted slightly and sat on the sofa. After he calmed down, he looked at her and said slowly, "I'll think about it." Gu Nianji was speechless. He was actually using bureaucratic language with her. Gu Nianji felt even more disgusted. She looked down and picked up the iPad from the sofa. She opened the list of assets and printed it out in 2 copies. She kept one for herself and passed the other to Huo Xiaoheng. "This is yours. When I have time, I'll go to your official residence and find these things to return to you. Also, take my clothes, shoes and bags with you." Huo Xiaoheng finally took the list and looked at it. He said slowly, "You've already returned the apartment to me. Where are you going to put your clothes, shoes and bags?" Gu Nianji originally wanted to say that she would put them in the student dormitory, but then she remembered that she had an entire 10-square-meter cloakroom in Huo Xiaoheng's official residence just for her clothes. Her entire room in the B University dormitory wasn't even 10 square meters. "I'm looking for an apartment. I have enough money to pay the down payment." Gu Nianji blinked and unknowingly revealed her intentions. Huo Xiaoheng rubbed his brows. "You can stay in that apartment on the 3rd Ring Road. You don't have to return it to me." "No, I hate that place the most." Gu Nianji immediately objected. Because Gu Yanran lived above her, she didn't want to mistreat herself anymore. If she didn't like it, then she should clearly express it. What if she didn't want to consider the bigger picture? Huo Xiaoheng understood and was silent for a while. "Okay, then we'll talk about it later. Your injury hasn't healed yet. You should rest first." Gu Nianji didn't argue with him. She knew that arguing now was useless. Huo Xiaoheng obviously thought that she was throwing a tantrum on a whim and thought that it would be fine after a while. She would use her actions to prove that she wasn't throwing a tantrum. Thinking about it this way, Gu Nianji also calmed down. "Okay, Brother Chen also asked me to rest first." She rubbed her arm. "You twisted it just now. I don't know if it's dislocated." Huo Xiaoheng stood up and grabbed her elbow and squeezed it. Then he squeezed her shoulder and said, "It's not dislocated." Gu Nianji shook her arm and suddenly remembered that she had been in danger several times in the Alps. Her arm had been injured, but it had quickly healed. "Huo Xiaoheng, do you and Brother Chen know that I have a special constitution?" Gu Nianji asked directly and didn't beat around the bush. Huo Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" "When I was being chased in the Alps, I was injured a few times." Gu Nianji stretched out her left arm that had been shot and rolled up her sleeve, revealing a smooth, snow-white arm without a single flaw. Not even a single pore could be seen. "Look, does this look like it was shot?" Huo Xiaoheng's hand trembled visibly before he reached out to hold her wrist. His other hand stroked her arm and moved it down inch by inch. "Where were you shot?" Gu Nianji pointed to the direction where her left elbow was facing outwards. "Here." Then she pointed to her left leg. "I fell off a cliff here and even fractured it, but it completely healed within 2 days." Huo Xiaoheng half knelt down and pulled up Gu Nianji's yoga pants to examine her calf. He really couldn't see where the fracture was. "Is that right?" Gu Nianji continued to ask. "Is this why you and Brother Chen never let me go to other hospitals?" It was because of her special constitution, and because they didn't want her to become a lab rat. Huo Xiaoheng stood up and nodded. He didn't hide it from her anymore. "Yes, your constitution is indeed special, but not to the point of being ridiculous. We didn't want you to go to other hospitals and also to avoid unnecessary trouble." From this aspect, Gu Nianji was sincerely grateful to Huo Xiaoheng and Chen Lai. The two of them cherished her like a human being, not as important experimental data. Gu Nianji was extremely grateful to Huo Xiaoheng when she thought about what Yi Zitan would do for experimental data. But gratitude was one thing and loving him was another. Gu Nianji nodded and was about to thank Huo Xiaoheng when she heard knocking at the door. Yin Shixiang's voice sounded at the door. Huo Xiao, Secretary Chao from General Ji's side is here. He said he wants to take you to see General Ji. He didn't want to make the call but came directly to arrest her. Huo Xiaoheng was also prepared to see General Ji today to explain the situation. He straightened his military uniform and looked at Gu Nianji. Rest well, we'll talk when I come back. Gu Nianji smiled and said non-committally, You're busy, Chief. The big shots are important. Huo Xiaoheng was speechless. He walked out of Gu Nianji's room and closed the door. Huo Xiao. Yin Shixiang hurried over, but when he saw Huo Xiaoheng's face, he immediately pursed his lips. Huo Xiaoheng's lower lip was obviously bitten, and there was a row of tiny teeth marks. What was going on? Yin Shixiang quickly imagined a passionate action movie where Nianji fought back, and Huo Xiao suppressed the two and fought for 300 rounds. What's wrong? Huo Xiaoheng glanced at him. Did you see a ghost? It was more frightening than seeing a ghost. Yin Shixiang stared at Huo Xiaoheng's lips in a daze and used his finger to stroke his lower lip. Huo Xiao, your mouth. What's wrong? Huo Xiaoheng froze slightly and turned to open the door. He walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The wound on his lower lip was still bleeding, and the row of tiny teeth marks on his full lip was very obvious, like a row of brands. It was the second watch. Good night, everyone. Chapter 7:11. Huo Xiaoheng looked at himself in the mirror and smiled wryly. The restroom was the one in the hospital building and also in Chen Lai's office, so it was equipped with a first aid kit. Huo Xiaoheng skillfully took out a first aid kit from the cupboard. There were cotton swabs and hemostatic ointment in the first aid kit. He dipped a cotton swab in the ointment and applied it to the wound on his lower lip. He then used the cotton swab dipped in distilled water to rub it over his lower lip. Soon, the wound on his lower lip stopped bleeding, and the row of tiny teeth marks on his lip also disappeared. By the time Huo Xiaoheng came out of the bathroom, he looked normal, except that his plump lips were a little pale. Gu Nianji sat on the sofa and didn't even look up to see what Huo Xiaoheng was doing. Huo Xiaoheng didn't say anything and went straight out. He closed the door behind him and asked Yin Shixiang, Where's Secretary Chao? Downstairs. Yin Shixiang glanced at Huo Xiaoheng's lips to see that they had been cleaned up and followed him downstairs. Secretary Chao was smoking in front of a military jeep at the entrance of the medical building. When he saw Huo Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang come out, he quickly threw away the cigarette in his hand and walked up with a smile to salute Huo Xiaoheng. Chief, General Ji wants to see you. Although Secretary Chao was General Ji's personal secretary, his rank and position were lower than Huo Xiaoheng's. He was still very polite to Huo Xiaoheng in public. Huo Xiaoheng nodded. Hello, Secretary Chao. I was planning to see General Ji today, but I didn't think we'd be going together. General Ji is just concerned about you. Secretary Chao smiled and tried to smooth things over. They exchanged some pleasantries before Fan Jian drove Huo Xiaoheng's car over and stopped beside them. Huo Xiaoheng waved at Secretary Chao. Let's go now. Don't keep General Ji waiting. After you. Secretary Chao watched Huo Xiaoheng get in the car before getting into his own jeep. Drive back to the military HQ. Secretary Chao drove in front with the driver while Huo Xiaoheng sat in his own car and followed behind the military jeep. At this time the sun had just risen. The early morning sunlight shone on the streets and alleys of the imperial capital, and the air was filled with the faint fragrance of osmanthus. Two military vehicles drove into the main gate of the military headquarters one after the other. Salute. When the sentries at the gate saw the pass and license plate number on the military vehicles, they raised their right hands in unison and watched as the two vehicles drove into the depths of the headquarters. At this hour, General Ji did not go to his office. Instead, he waited for Huo Xiaoheng in his courtyard. Huo Xiaoheng got out of the car at the entrance of the courtyard and gave Yin Shixiang a look. Yin Shixiang understood and didn't follow them in. Instead, he contacted Zhao Liangze, who was stationed in the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. With a Bluetooth headset in his ear, the two of them chatted casually. Huo Xiaoheng arrived at the door of General Ji's study and saluted loudly. Huo Xiaoheng reporting back from a mission. General Ji waited almost the entire night for Huo Xiaoheng to come see him. He was happy, angry, and a little dissatisfied. He intentionally left Wu Xiaoheng at the door for a while before calling out, "Come in." Wu Xiaoheng pushed the door open and walked in, closing the door at the same time. General Ji's study was covered in a thick dark red carpet. The furniture in the study was made of the same color of mahogany. The antique style made it look like the study of an old scholar. In the spacious study, a tall mahogany shelf divided the study into two halves. General Ji was sitting in a small room that was separated from the shelf. Wu Xiaoheng walked around the shelf and saw General Ji sitting behind the large desk, looking at him with a stern expression. General Ji sneered when he saw him enter. He gave him a show of strength first. "Wu Xiaoheng, you still know to come see me?" "General Ji, the Special Operations Forces was in trouble after I came back, so I took care of things there first before coming to see you. If something happens to the Special Operations Forces, you will be the one to be blamed, so I had to take care of it as a top priority." Wu Xiaoheng spoke in a dignified manner. He even reminded General Ji that if the Special Operations Forces were in trouble, General Ji would definitely be in trouble as well. This was because the Special Operations Forces had been established with General Ji's full support in the beginning. General Ji laughed at Wu Xiaoheng's words. He took out a stack of documents from the drawer and threw it on the desk. "What? You're doing this for my own good? Wu Xiaoheng, don't treat everyone like an idiot. What do you mean by the Special Operations Forces is in trouble? What a good excuse you have. Look at this. How did they accuse you?" "Accuse me?" Wu Xiaoheng pretended to be confused. "I just came back yesterday, so I really don't know what happened. I'd like to hear the details. Don't play dumb with me. I'm telling you, you abused your power for your own woman. You used public resources for your own personal use. How dare you tell me you don't know anything? Every single one of the above was irrefutable evidence. You'll make a mistake. You'll make a major organizational mistake." General Ji slapped the stack of documents on the desk and stood up from behind the desk. The corners of Wu Xiaoheng's eyes twitched. A mocking smile appeared on his face as he said slowly, "Used public resources for personal use? Abused my power? I think the people who accuse me should first ask the newly appointed Prime Minister Tan, then tell me what it means to use public resources for personal use." General Ji was speechless at Wu Xiaoheng's words and felt a bit guilty. Wu Xiaoheng's trip to New York this time was indeed an undeserved disaster. He had originally asked Wu Xiaoheng to take on this mission out of kindness so he could increase his favorability with the cabinet. He hadn't expected it to be a trap. General Ji coughed and put away the stack of documents. "You can't say that. Prime Minister Tan is the Prime Minister after all. Helping him is part of your job. As a soldier, shouldn't you protect the safety of the Prime Minister's family? I think they forgot that when they sent me to New York, Tan Dongbang wasn't the Prime Minister yet," Wu Xiaoheng said calmly. "They wanted to make him a scapegoat? Haha, this kind of person hadn't even been born yet. Even if he had, he could immediately send him to reincarnate again. Look at you. What's the rush? Didn't I hit your sore spot?" General Ji folded his hands behind his back and looked at him with dissatisfaction. "Don't play dumb with me. You didn't hesitate to use a fighter jet for your girlfriend. Isn't that favoritism? What kind of status does Gu Nianji have, and what kind of status does Tang Guiren have? How can they be compared?" Wu Xiaoheng also folded his hands behind his back and spread his legs. He stood as straight as a pine tree and as tall as a mountain. He said calmly, "You're right. No matter how you look at it, Tang Guiren can't be compared to Gu Nianji. It's good that you know." General Ji saw that Wu Xiaoheng seemed to admit defeat, and his anger subsided a bit. He was about to say something to ease the situation when Wu Xiaoheng spoke again. "Tan Guiren is useless to the country and has made no contributions. Instead, she enjoys a position and treatment that doesn't match her status at all. She consumes a lot of the country's manpower, material, and financial resources. This kind of serious wasteful behavior is something we should reflect on. I will make sure this kind of thing will never happen again." General Ji was speechless. But Gu Nianji is different. She appeared in our country when she was 12 years old and brought about a breakthrough in engine development for the country. Our country's fighter jets are among the best in the world because of her contributions. Wu Xiaoheng's expression was serious and resolute as if he was giving a report at a national conference. The corners of General Ji's mouth twitched. "But that blueprint clearly belongs to Gu Xiangwen. It doesn't have much to do with her, does it? It was taken from her backpack. General Ji, as far as we're concerned, we only recognize her. As for whether it's Gu Xiangwen's or not, we can only be sure after she wakes up. Before that, this credit belongs to Gu Nianji." Hua Xiaoheng was relentless and wouldn't allow anything to erase Gu Nianji's contributions. General Ji smiled bitterly and raised his hand. Fine. Even if that's the case, the military has protected her meticulously for 7 years. It's worth the blueprint, right? Hua Xiaoheng's lips twitched. He didn't want to argue with General Ji and said, "A year ago, Gu Nianji anonymously donated $90 million to the military as a charity fund for ordinary soldiers. It's now the largest charity fund in the military's hands." Jin Ji's heart. General Ji was deep in thought. Jin Ji's heart was indeed donated by Gu Nianji alone. I almost forgot, but where did she get so much money? He then muttered, Jin Ji's heart is Nianji. I was wondering why it was given such a name. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Yes, Jin Ji's heart is Nianji's name. I took it apart and gave it to her myself. As for her money, don't you remember? That was the compensation she received from her lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Justice and the CIA. She donated it to the military without hesitation and hid her name. It wasn't for personal gain at all. General Ji, tell me, how can Tanguerin compare to Nianji? General Ji frowned and sat down. He still said stubbornly, but that was only an economic act. Was it worth it for you to use the fighter jets privately? Yes, because she was worth it. As Hua Xiaoheng spoke, he tossed all the documents from the German Federal Intelligence Service that Zhao Liangzi had sorted out onto General Ji's desk. This time, Gu Nianji was betrayed by our people in Germany and was captured by the German Federal Intelligence Service. However, she didn't surrender. Instead, she fought them with her wits and bravery and single-handedly took down the entire German Federal Intelligence Service's intelligence system. She forwarded all the documents from their intelligence system to our email. General Ji, tell me, is this kind of achievement not worthy of us using our fighter jets to welcome her? I also have to inform you that these important documents, which Gu Nianji almost risked her life to obtain, were delayed by 3 days because our central control room was borrowed to monitor the election. The most precious time was lost just like that. General Ji was almost dumbfounded. Trembling, he grabbed his reading glasses and put them on. He began to read the documents quickly. He was so excited that he couldn't speak. This was the most valuable asset. This was the most valuable asset of a great nation. In comparison, Gu Nianji's previous donation of $90 million was not as great as this contribution. Hua Xiaoheng didn't say a word. He waited for General Ji to finish reading all the documents before saying, "May I ask, are you still going to pursue me for abusing my power and using public assets for private purposes? If you really want to pursue this, I'm not afraid of going to the Military Discipline Inspection Commission, and I'm definitely not afraid of going to the military court. I'll take out this evidence and let everyone judge. I used a fighter jet to welcome our country's hero. What's wrong with that? Who doesn't like me rescuing Gu Nianji? Just how evil are they? Do they have to force someone like Gu Nianji, who has made such a great contribution to our country, to another country before they'll be satisfied? Can't you call people like them traitors? 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 This was the first watch. Yes, it was the third watch today. At noon, it was the monthly pass of 3,300 plus updates. Because it looks like it's about time, I have a time difference with everyone. In order to let everyone see the updates earlier, I'll add updates in advance in the future. There was the third watch at 7 p.m. Chapter 7:12. Hua Xiaoheng enunciated each word clearly. His voice wasn't very loud, but each word was powerful and deafening. General Ji closed his eyes, and his expression gradually became solemn. He pushed the stack of documents towards Hua Xiaoheng, took off his reading glasses and sighed. He looked at Hua Xiaoheng. Okay, this was indeed a false accusation and I was prepared for it. If I really had a problem with you in this area, I wouldn't have shown you these documents. The crime of privately using a fighter jet for personal gain could be serious or minor. On the serious side, Hua Xiaoheng could be sentenced to life in prison for the highest degree of dereliction of duty. On the minor side, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't be able to escape punishment. If he were to be punished, his rank would most likely be demoted. There was a threshold from colonel to general, and many soldiers couldn't cross it in their entire lives. For someone like Hua Xiaoheng to cross it at such a young age, he must be a thorn in many people's eyes. Once he was demoted, he would never be able to cross this threshold in his lifetime. Therefore, no matter what the situation was, General Ji would protect Hua Xiaoheng and never allow anyone to successfully file a complaint. However, Hua Xiaoheng had to be punished, so he called him to his home and planned to scold him to wake him up. In the end, Hua Xiaoheng turned the tables on him. No one would be happy to encounter something like this, but when General Ji saw the information Gu Nianji had brought back, all his dissatisfaction disappeared. Nianji has indeed made a great contribution. Don't worry, I won't mistreat her on this. I remember who has contributed to our country and our military, and I will make the country and its people remember. General Ji was a person who was clear about rewards and punishments, but you also have to be careful about how you do things. Hua Xiaoheng still stood in front of General Ji's desk with his hands behind his back. He didn't look at the documents but looked straight ahead. He said calmly, I can understand that some people have a problem with me. In this position there are many people who don't like me. However, I believe in the organization, believe in the higher-ups, and believe in our soldiers. Their eyes are sharp and they will never let evil people succeed. These words were pleasing to General Ji's ears. One of the main reasons he admired Hua Xiaoheng was that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't like other soldiers who didn't care about the world. He didn't think he was the best in the world just because he had a little bit of ability. He didn't even respect his superiors and colleagues from the same unit. Hua Xiaoheng was different. He had the toughness and determination of a soldier, but he also had the smoothness and compromise of a politician. The person who could sit in the highest position in the military must be the best in both aspects. Therefore he was determined to groom Hua Xiaoheng as his successor. However, Hua Xiaoheng was still too young. Before the tree had fully grown, there were already slanting branches that needed to be trimmed by the gardener before it could become useful. General Ji was very displeased with Hua Xiaoheng this time because he had violated too many military principles for a woman. This made General Ji very unhappy and worried. He had chosen for so many years before finally finding a successor who suited him in every aspect. He could not allow an insignificant woman to ruin Hua Xiaoheng's future. Therefore he was even stricter with Hua Xiaoheng. General Ji's expression darkened as he frowned at Hua Xiaoheng. Nianji did make a great contribution, but you can't use her contributions as an excuse for your mistakes. Tell me, did you not do anything wrong at all? Hua Xiaoheng raised his head and said without hesitation, General Ji, I Hua Xiaoheng have never done anything wrong to the country, the military, or the citizens. You really didn't do anything wrong? Xiaoheng, I'll give you one last chance. General Ji propped himself on the table and slowly stood up with narrowed eyes. He leaned forward, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. At this moment, this veteran's aura was truly on full display. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't frightened. He shook his head firmly. Sir, I didn't. General Ji had given Hua Xiaoheng a chance, but he was still unrepentant and unwilling to admit his mistakes. He was instantly furious. Hua Xiaoheng, as a soldier, you lied to your superiors for a woman and went against them in secret. How dare you say you didn't do anything wrong? How dare you say you didn't hide anything from me about Nianji's background? This was the real reason General Ji was most displeased with Hua Xiaoheng. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. In General Ji's eyes, Hua Xiaoheng had made a huge mistake this time. However, Hua Xiaoheng still said loudly, Sir, I didn't. You're still so stubborn. General Ji angrily took out Gu Nianji and Gu Xiangwen's DNA report from the drawer and angrily threw it on the desk. See for yourself. Gu Nianji isn't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter at all. Gu Yanran is. We've been looking in the wrong direction all along. Yet, for the sake of your own personal gain, you deceived me because of the love between a man and a woman. You lied to the organization. Don't squander my trust in you just because I appreciate you. Ask yourself, would I make things difficult for you if you told me the truth? It's because you lied to me about this key issue that I truly feel that I can't let you be with Gu Nianji anymore. Who knows what kind of mistakes you'll make for her in the future. Xiaoheng, I handed such a large organization to you, and this is how you make the organization feel at ease. General Ji finished in one breath, the veins on his forehead popping. To a soldier, disobeying orders and secretly disobeying orders was a fatal blow. Hua Xiaoheng finally understood the real reason for General Ji's change in attitude. So it was because of Gu Nianji's background. Fortunately, he had already prepared for this. He had only kept it to himself to get the marriage permit earlier and let Gu Nianji pass the complicated background check. Now that General Ji knew they had gotten the marriage permit, and Gu Nianji had passed the background check, he had nothing to worry about. I didn't lie, nor did I lie to you or the organization. Hua Xiaoheng's tone was still calm and his attitude was very normal. He didn't seem like he had any ulterior motives at all. General Ji stared at Hua Xiaoheng trying to figure out what he was thinking. His brows furrowed even more. Do you think I'm that stupid? You didn't lie just because you said you didn't? You still want to be so stubborn in the face of evidence? Xiaoheng, you're not that kind of person. General Ji, don't be angry. I really didn't lie to you. I believe that the DNA report you received is real, and it does show that Gu Nianji is not related to Gu Xiangwen in a vegetative state. But who can prove that Gu Xiangwen in a vegetative state is the real Gu Xiangwen? Xiaoheng threw out his trump card without batting an eyelid. He had begun to suspect this when he found out from Qinlai that Gu Nianji's DNA didn't match with Gu Xiangwen. However, he did have his own plans. He wanted to temporarily give Gu Nianji an identity so she could pass the background check and marry him. Unfortunately, God's plan was not as good as his. He had everything planned out and even General Ji was kept in the dark. He just didn't expect the most uncooperative person to be Gu Nianji. Why would she even get married? She was about to break up with him. Sadness flashed across the depths of Xiaoheng's eyes. General Ji was flabbergasted by Xiaoheng's words. He was even more shocked than the day he heard from Guanchen that Gu Nianji wasn't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter. He almost yelled, "What do you mean? You were the one who saved him. If he's fake, then why did you mobilize so many people that time?" Xiaoheng looked at General Ji calmly and nodded. "Yes, I brought him back personally, but I only brought him back because of Nianji's background. The situation was very urgent. As soon as we arrived in Barbados, there were people trying to kill Gu Xiangwen in a vegetative state. We didn't have time to investigate the truth, so we could only bring him back first. As for the truth, I'm still investigating. I've always believed that Nianji is Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter, but the DNA doesn't match. Either this Gu Xiangwen is fake, or there's something we don't know about. But Gu Yanran's DNA matches his. How do you explain that?" General Ji's heart slowly came back to life. Although Xiaoheng's reason sounded shocking, it wasn't baseless. If everything he said was true, then Xiaoheng wasn't pretending to be against him or lying to him. General Ji was confident in Xiaoheng's work. General Ji heaved a long sigh of relief, and his entire body relaxed. Xiaoheng continued to nod. Yes, the vegetative Gu Xiangwen and Gu Yanran should be biological father and daughter. So I think there's something we don't know. I originally wanted to summarize the contradictions and suspicious points before reporting to you in detail. But you sent me to the United States to save Prime Minister Tan's daughter as soon as we returned from Barbados. I didn't have time to do that at all. He spread his hands and took advantage of the opportunity when General Ji had been convinced. General Ji, I really want to know who gave you this DNA report. Why do you want to know this? General Ji narrowed his eyes and looked like a sly old fox. Nothing much. No matter who this person is, you have to be cautious. Think about it. Aren't there too many coincidences to drive a wedge between you and me? After all, everyone knows that you're my biggest and only backer. Xiaoheng's words satisfied General Ji and finally smoothed out the discord and uneasiness he felt about his betrayal. Xiaoheng knew very well that if this not really existed in General Ji's heart, it would grow and fester sooner or later and become a cancer that could threaten them. Now he could prick it, cut it off, and clean it so that he wouldn't have to worry about future side effects. General Ji truly treated Xiaoheng as his confidant and confided in him. Your father found out about this from Gu Yanran. I had someone find the DNA report for me. This was an advance update for the second monthly pass of 3,300. There was still a third update at 7 p.m. P.S. Some details were changed in the previous chapter. You can go back and look at it again. Chapter 713. My father has something to do with this? Xiaoheng was truly surprised. Why would he pay attention to this? Xiaoheng was also a bit surprised that Gu Yanran had voluntarily revealed this. Because Gu Yanran had never mentioned it before, Xiaoheng also knew that she wanted to get close to Gu Nianji, so she wouldn't take the initiative to reveal this. He didn't expect it to come out of her mouth this time. General Ji's answer answered both of his questions at the same time. It's like this. News of Nianji's disappearance in Germany came through our consulate there. Director Bai specifically asked his daughter, Bai Yueran, to inform me. I was also very shocked at the time, so I asked your father to make the decision to use the highest standards to rescue Gu Nianji. In the end, when your father went to visit Gu Xiangwen, he found Gu Yanran there, so he told her about Gu Nianji's disappearance. After all, we thought they were biological sisters at the time. General Ji couldn't help but sigh, but when he came back to his senses, he also realized something was amiss. Why didn't Gu Yanran mention it earlier or later? Why did she suddenly reveal the fact that Gu Nianji was an adopted daughter of the Gu family when Gu Nianji's disappearance was so urgent? I see. Xiaoheng didn't say much else. Since it was his father, Guanchen, who received the news, it seemed like he had to make a trip home. How is it? Did you catch the spy after you came back? General G finally asked with concern. You should also reflect on how an organization like the Special Operations Forces was infiltrated by someone. That's not strange. Our work is done through infiltration, and reverse osmosis. It would be strange if there weren't any spies. Hua Xiaoheng didn't think much of it. I can guarantee that our important departments will be able to eliminate the existence of spies, but I can't guarantee that for other departments. What do you mean? I thought the person you found this time was in the Special Operations Forces. That Dr. Yi something, right? General G was still very concerned about this matter. General G was also furious that Hua Xiaoheng had met with danger in New York. His most capable general had almost died without reason. Yes, it's Yi Zieten. He was executed this morning. Hua Xiaoheng said calmly, but she wasn't the real mastermind. There should be someone else behind her, but the other party's security was too tight, and we couldn't find any traces at all. To prevent more information from being leaked, I directly ordered her to be executed. General G said with a half-smile. He should be executed immediately. But isn't the marksmanship of the Special Operations Forces firing squad a little too bad? I heard that in order to shoot her, your firing squad used up 3 magazines of bullets? Yes, that executioner's marksmanship is not very good. I've already asked him to practice his marksmanship more. Hua Xiaoheng's expression did not change, nor did his heart skip a beat. General G could not possibly have concrete evidence on this matter anyway. Even if he could guess the reason, it would forever remain a guess. It's good that you know. Dr. Ye's incident did have a negative impact. Because of her, we sacrificed 2 field agents for nothing. And Yanji, do you know why they kidnapped her? General G frowned. And it's the German Federal Intelligence Agency. I feel like something's off. They all knew that the German Federal Intelligence Agency's predecessor was the infamous Gestapo during World War II. I heard from Yanji that someone revealed my relationship with her to them, so... Hua Xiaoheng discreetly blamed Gu Nianji's kidnapping on himself, although he knew it was definitely not the case. The other party clearly valued Gu Nianji much more than he did. However, he did not want General G to notice this now, and he also did not want Gu Nianji to be noticed by the military again. Oh, that's ridiculous. Looks like Nianji was caught in the crossfire. General G accepted this reason. After all, Hua Xiaoheng had been active in Europe for a few years and had fought with the German Federal Intelligence Agency. It was certain that they would pay attention to Hua Xiaoheng. It's very likely that's the reason, but what exactly happened? I think I still have to make a trip to Germany. Hua Xiaoheng did not make a definite decision, but he volunteered to go to Germany. Gu Nianji was angry now, and Hua Xiaoheng did not want to have another conflict with her. Also, he did owe her a rescue. Although she had successfully rescued herself with He Zichu's help, Hua Xiaoheng still held a grudge. He had to avenge Gu Nianji and teach the German Federal Intelligence Agency a lesson. You're going personally? General G was not very willing. Xiaoheng, it's not suitable for you to personally go on missions now. General G, I've already been a bodyguard for people. What job do you think I can't do? Hua Xiaoheng mocked himself. Don't worry, I'll plan ahead this time. I'll be back soon and won't waste any time. Okay, you're already the head of the Special Operations Forces. I trust your judgment and ability. General G felt somewhat guilty towards Hua Xiaoheng, so he did not strongly object. He only reminded him again, you must be careful and pay attention to your safety. Don't take any risks. Roger, Chief. Hua Xiaoheng saluted again to signal the end of this conversation. He could be considered to have successfully passed this test. After leaving General G's home, Hua Xiaoheng immediately brought Yin Shixiang back to the Special Operations Forces headquarters base. They went directly to the central control room on the 6th floor of the basement. Zhao Liangzi had been there for a day. Other than being on standby for Hua Xiaoheng, he was also sorting and archiving the secret documents Gu Nianji had sent back. Hua Xiao, General G didn't make things difficult for you, right? Seeing Hua Xiaoheng enter with a solemn expression, Zhao Liangzi hurried over and asked with concern. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. General G is fine. I've already explained. Now, I need you to do something else. Roger, Chief. Hua Xiaoheng walked to the supercomputer in the central control room and pressed a few commands. Find all the information on ALS, the director of the German Federal Intelligence Agency, and send me his schedule for the last 10 days. I'll give you an hour. I want to receive the information before I get on the plane. Plane? Where are you going? Zhao Liangzi glanced at Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang shrugged to indicate that he didn't know either. Hua Xiaoheng finally said, Big Xiong, pack up. We're going to Germany. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang immediately understood Hua Xiaoheng's intentions. They didn't say anything else and said in unison, Roger, Chief. An hour later, Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang had already disguised themselves and boarded the Lufthansa plane to Berlin, Germany. Their identities this time were backpackers going on a poor vacation to Germany. They wore the most ordinary of jackets, large black-framed glasses, backpacks and Louis Vuitton flats. Their hair was a bit greasy. The neat and tidy Germans were very careful to keep their distance from them. The two of them wanted the effect of being looked at but not being paid too much attention. 10 hours later, the plane arrived at the Berlin airport. Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang successfully entered the country. Their visas and passports were all real. They had the support of the country, so they didn't have to think about smuggling themselves. The two of them rented a car from the Berlin airport and drove directly to the Berlin city center. They rented a room in a hotel a block away from the German Federal Intelligence Agency, directly facing the main entrance of the agency. In the morning, they could see the German Federal Intelligence Agency employees walking in for work. In the afternoon, they could see them coming out for lunch. In the evening, they could see them returning home from work. The two of them were already prepared, so they naturally didn't pay too much attention to other people. Their target from the beginning to the end was only one person, and that was ALS. Al's appearance was very outstanding. He had a kind of feminine beauty that was abnormal, so he stood out in the crowd. Hua Xiaoheng looked at the pattern of Al's movements for the past 10 days that Zhao Liangzi had sent him. He realized that ALS often went to a small restaurant 2 blocks away for lunch. There weren't many people on that street, so it was relatively quiet. There weren't many people in the small restaurant either. Hua Xiaoheng observed for a day and said to Yin Shixiang, book the tickets back to the imperial capital. We'll make our move tomorrow at noon, and then immediately board the plane. Their tickets back were booked by Huaxia Imperial Airlines. This was the only way to ensure that they wouldn't be dragged down midway like cargo. At noon the next day, the sky in Berlin was a bit gloomy. The sun only came out for a moment in the morning, but it actually started to drizzle at noon. Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang both wore raincoats that could change color. They lay prone on the rooftop of the 3rd floor of the residential building across from the small restaurant. They set up their sniper rifles, put on a silencer, and aimed at the seat that ALS usually sat in the small restaurant. Hua Xiaoheng analyzed the information that Zhao Liangzi had sent over. ALS was a person with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. That was why he could walk the same route, go to the same restaurant, and sit in his habitual seat for 10 years without changing his posture or direction. For an intelligence agent, this habit was a bit strange. However, ALS didn't go out into the field. He only did internal work and assassination work, so his severe obsessive-compulsive disorder wasn't a minus, but a plus. The rain gradually thickened, and their vision was also limited. However, from the scope of the sniper rifle, everything in the cross-shaped field of view was neat and orderly. It was as clear as a database, and every position could be marked with coordinates. At 12:30, ALS appeared in their field of view on time. He wore a gray raincoat, and his hands were in his pockets as he casually walked into the restaurant. He ordered his usual fried fish and sausages as well as a small bun and a bowl of soup. He carried it on a plate to his habitual seat and sat down. Just as he picked up his knife and fork to stab the fried fish, ALS suddenly felt that something was wrong. A red dot seemed to suddenly appear out of thin air and slid past his eyes. He looked up, but he couldn't see where the red dot had gone. If someone was sitting across from him at that moment, they would see the little red dot in the center of his forehead. In the next moment there was a soft sound. Al's body suddenly stiffened as he stared blankly in front of him. There was a clear bullet hole in his forehead. It was very round, very much in line with the habits of people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. It took ALS 5 minutes to flop on the dining table. At that moment, Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang had already gotten into their rented car and were driving to the airport. Yin Shixiang asked curiously, Hua Xiao, why did you use our country's sniper rifle this time? The Germans will be able to detect it. It's to let them know that we did it, Hua Xiaoheng said calmly. He slammed on the accelerator and arrived at the airport in 10 minutes. After another 5 minutes, they successfully boarded the plane with the help of the airport staff. When the German intelligence agency finally received the news that ALS had been killed in the restaurant, the Huaxia Empire's flight had already left Germany and arrived in Kazakhstan's airspace. It was the 3rd watch. There was a 2nd watch at 1 p.m. today, so they forgot to look at their watches. Chapter 7:14. The area 2 streets away from the Federal Intelligence Service headquarters in Berlin, Germany, was tightly sealed off. The outermost area was filled with normal riot police. They wore bulletproof helmets, bulletproof vests, and bulletproof shields. They were fully armed, but no one knew who they were guarding against. The Germans were different from the Wuxia people. They didn't like to watch a commotion. Thus, when the area was sealed off, almost all the Germans took a detour. The people who lived in the area didn't dare to poke their heads out. They all shut their doors and windows tightly. The residential buildings on both sides of the street were filled with armed soldiers. They held semi-automatic submachine guns in their hands and wore sunglasses. They occupied a high vantage point and vigilantly monitored everyone in and out of the street. On the other hand, there were many plain-clothed agents walking around, searching for evidence. The center of the encirclement was the small restaurant where ALS had been sniped. The owner of the restaurant and the diners at the time had already been taken to another room and detained. It wasn't said that they were criminals. It was more accurate to say that they were witnesses at the scene, or that they could be spies. These factors couldn't be eliminated. ALS was still lying on the small dining table, but only a little black blood flowed out of the bullet hole in his forehead. On his smooth, white forehead, there was a strange-ish shape that looked like a snake mark. The senior agent from the Berlin police headquarters was spitting saliva as he came to a conclusion for his own people. It's obvious that this is a cult killing people. Look at the mark on his forehead. I've seen this pattern in my many years of working cases. Many agents nodded in agreement, agreeing that what he said made sense. But some agents didn't think so. They gathered around ALS, their eyes darting around, looking at everyone in the room. Not long after, there was a sudden sound of car brakes at the entrance of the street that was surrounded by riot police. All of them. Salute. A uniformed salute came from the entrance. The police officers who were investigating the case looked up. They saw a tall man in a black trench coat walk over quickly. He had a high nose, deep eyes, blonde hair, and blue eyes. His facial features were the typical Germanic beauty. There was a small groove on his chin, and his expression was solemn. It was as if he had nothing to live for, and he had a religious aura of abstinence. All the German soldiers present were saluting him, but he was expressionless and didn't even look at them. Major General Reinitz. Is that Major General Reinitz? Why is he here? He's the head of the Federal Intelligence Agency, the head of the Federal Intelligence Agency. He just took office at the beginning of this year. The person who died was his right-hand man. He must have come to express his gratitude, right? The Berlin police officers were discussing among themselves, but Reinitz didn't walk toward them. Instead, he turned around and walked toward the 3-story residential building across from the restaurant. However, although Reinitz didn't come over, a few plainclothes agents from the Federal Intelligence Agency walked over and showed the police their IDs. We'll take over the case here. You can go now. What? This criminal case is a murder committed by a cult. It has always been handled by our police department. You guys are the Federal Intelligence Agency. Aren't you overstepping your boundaries? The agents from the police station were indignant. Seeing that it was another big case that would cause a sensation in the country, how could they be willing to give up this opportunity to become famous? Go back and ask your bureau chief about this question. The agents from the Federal Intelligence Agency were very arrogant. They asked the policemen to leave at the slightest disagreement. Do you want to leave by yourselves or do you want me to throw you out? The policemen didn't have a choice. They looked at the soldiers who were ready for battle, as well as the aggressive agents from the Federal Intelligence Agency. They couldn't get the support of the police headquarters, so they could only give up and retreat from the street. Before they left, they looked at the rooftop of the residential building across from the restaurant and saw that a group of people had already gathered around Major General Reinitz. They didn't know what they were doing. Reinitz, who was standing on the rooftop of the residential building, was staring at a spot on the rooftop in a daze. Major General Reinitz, this should be where the enemy set up their sniper rifle. The specialist in charge of technical support from the Federal Intelligence Agency's Directorate 6 was demonstrating the ballistic curve to Reinitz. The enemy's marksmanship is very accurate. The sniper rifle should be a Wuxia Imperial JS-0 sniper rifle. It uses an ultra-fine precision bullet and it was a headshot. The force of the bullet was just right, so it didn't penetrate Chief Al's skull. Instead, it directly exploded in a small area inside his brain. That was why there wasn't even much blood. The specifics can be verified after Chief ALS performs an autopsy and removes the bullet. Reinitz was expressionless as he said indifferently, "You already said that the bullet caused a small explosion. How can you still find evidence?" "What do you mean?" Reinitz checked the traces left by the enemy's sniper rifle again and nodded. It is indeed a sniper rifle produced by the Wuxia Empire. There is no doubt about that. Was it really the Wuxia Empire's secret service? They are simply too cruel. They actually dared to come to our territory and provoke us. Reinitz didn't shake his head or nod. A strange smile appeared on his face, but that smile quickly disappeared from his perpetually lifeless face. Just based on this evidence, we can't prove that it was the Wuxia Empire who did it. What? Because this sniper rifle was publicly sold by the Wuxia Empire at the World Gun Show. Anyone can buy it. Just like how you can't see an American-made Remington sniper rifle and say that the murderer is an American. Reinitz's voice was very slow and gentle, but his subordinates all knew that this director of the Federal Intelligence Agency, who was comparable to the youngest major general in the Wuxia Empire, had always been a ruthless character. However, he was different from his good friend ALS. ALS was ruthless on the surface, but everyone knew that ALS was a pervert. Reinitz wouldn't physically torture people like ALS, but he could still make people wish they were dead. Then who did it? Could it really be like what the police said, that it was a cult killing people? The technical specialist was in the technical field, so he wasn't very good at analyzing cases. Reinitz didn't say anything. He turned around and walked down the building to the small restaurant across the street. A tall, beautiful woman had been waiting for him downstairs for a long time. When she saw him coming down, she walked up to him and said, "Major General Reinitz, I think this was done by the Wuxia Empire." The goal was to avenge Gunyenji. She stared at Reinitz with obvious anger on her face as if she was accusing him. Reinitz didn't even look at her and said dryly, "Tina, are you the director or am I the director? I don't want to hear this kind of thing a second time." Tina clenched her fists and looked at Reinitz's straight back. She said coldly, "Major General Reinitz, don't you want to avenge us? Or are you so mesmerized by a woman that you've forgotten your duty and loyalty?" Reinitz ignored her and quickly walked to the small restaurant. He looked at Alice, who was collapsed on the table, and turned around to give an order. "Check all the flights in and out of Berlin in the past 3 days. Find the targets. Everyone from the Wuxia Empire, regardless of nationality." He frowned and raised the level of his opponent in his mind. Reinitz really didn't expect the Wuxia Empire's revenge to be so swift and violent. For the past few days, he had been dealing with the fact that all the files in the Federal Intelligence Agency's central control system had been wiped clean. All field personnel had to be recalled, all the keys had to be changed, and all communications had to be temporarily stopped. Because of this, when he received news that ALS had been killed, it was already a few hours late. Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang were already in Kazakhstan's airspace. Reinitz thought about it for a few minutes before personally sending a special message to the chairman of the Wuxia Imperial Military Supreme Council, General Ji, as a major general of the German army and the director of the Federal Intelligence Agency. In the special message, he asked the Wuxia Imperial Military why the trajectory of a Wuxia Imperial sniper rifle would appear at the scene where ALS, the director of the Federal Intelligence Agency's First Bureau, was killed in Berlin, Germany. He also asked the Wuxia Imperial Military for a list of customers who had purchased JS-0 sniper rifles from the Wuxia Empire in the past few years. Of course, Reinitz wasn't naive enough to think the Wuxia Empire would give him a list of customers. He was only using this method to warn the Wuxia Imperial Military and tell them that he knew what they had done in Berlin. When General Ji saw the special message from Germany, he finally realized what Wuxia Imperial had been up to. He instantly flew into a rage and threw a tantrum in his office. He really doesn't listen. I told him not to take risks. However, he definitely wouldn't care about the Germans' provocation. General Ji had his secretary send a simple reply, "Trade secret, no comment." At the same time, he had Secretary Chow go to the Special Operations Forces headquarters to stop Wuxia Imperial again. Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang left the Imperial Capital International Airport, got into Fan Zhen's car, and went straight to the Special Operations Forces headquarters. They had only been gone for 2 days this time, and their movements were as fast as lightning. However, both of them were very calm. This wasn't the first time they had done something like this, so there was nothing to be excited about. Moreover, Hua Xiaoheng's pent-up anger hadn't been alleviated by Al's death. However, as soon as they returned to the headquarters, they were stopped by Secretary Chow. "Major General Hua, please be kind and come with me quickly." General Ji almost flipped the dinner table. Secretary Chow didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It had only been 3 days and he had already gone to the Special Operations Forces headquarters to arrest people twice. Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. How did General Ji know what had happened so quickly? Secretary Chao took a step closer to him and whispered, "The Germans sent a special message." Hua Xiaoheng nodded. The other party's reaction was indeed fast. He followed Secretary Chao to General Ji's study. He had just left this study 2 days ago and now he was back here again. There was only a desk lamp in the study so it was a bit dim. General Ji sat behind the wide desk. As soon as he saw him enter, he shouted, "How many times have I told you? Don't take risks. Don't take risks. You've turned a deaf ear, haven't you?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't say a word and allowed General Ji to scold him. General Ji scolded him for almost 15 minutes. After he was done, he finally relaxed a bit. He picked up the teacup on the desk and took a sip of tea. He leaned back in his chair tiredly. "You've made a big target this time. The other party won't let this go easily." Hua Xiaoheng finally looked up and said calmly, "Yes, I did it on purpose. 2 of our field agents died because of them, so they must pay the price. This price must be that if you respect me, I will respect you 10 times. Otherwise, these people wouldn't learn their lesson." General Ji admired Hua Xiaoheng's toughness, but he didn't believe Hua Xiaoheng's explanation. Why must it be ALS? Even if you respect them 10 times, why pick the second in command of the Federal Intelligence Agency? This is like the other party coming to kill your deputy commander. Can you tolerate it? General Ji stared at Hua Xiaoheng and saw all the changes in his expression. Hua Xiaoheng remained unmoved. They have to tolerate it even if they can't tolerate it. Of course this isn't over, but when will they let us go? Why should we find a way out for them? This made so much sense that General Ji was actually speechless. He was also reflecting on himself. Was it because he was getting older that he really didn't have the fearless drive of a young man? After a long time, General Ji waved his hand. "All right, you can go back. I'll give you 3 months off to get some rest. Your murderous aura has been too strong recently. It's not good for your work." This was the first update and it had 3,500 words. It was as good as the third update with 1,000 words, right? Oh, intersection. Oh. I have to remind everyone of the recommendation votes. There was a second update at 7 p.m. Chapter 7:15. 3 months off? Take a vacation while the Special Operations Forces are in a mess? Of course, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't agree, but he wouldn't directly say no to General Ji either. "General Ji, I was really impulsive this time. Think about it, I was set up in the United States and almost fell into the hands of the CIA. Here, there was a traitor in my base camp and caused 2 of my field comrades to die tragically abroad. Their bodies haven't been found yet. I went to Germany this time to teach them a lesson, but it's not enough. So I can't take a break for now," Hua Xiaoheng said sincerely and gently. General Ji frowned and rubbed his chin. "What you said makes sense, but you've already executed 2 people in 2 days. I know you're angry, but at times like this you have to stay calm. You've been doing this for a long time, so you shouldn't be so impulsive." Yes, he shouldn't be impulsive, but he shouldn't miss a golden opportunity while waiting. Hua Xiaoheng went to Germany to personally assassinate ALS. Of course he had his own selfish motives, but he had also carefully analyzed it. He didn't attack recklessly in a moment of anger. His biggest advantage was that Gu Nianji had just destroyed the entire central control system of the German Federal Intelligence Service. Only when the enemy's intelligence network was temporarily paralyzed would he be able to quickly attack and find an opportunity to kill the enemy's second-in-command. It was also the person he hated the most. From the moment he saw Gu Nianji being electrocuted, he swore to personally kill the culprit. When he first saw the video, he didn't know who had electrocuted Gu Nianji. Later, when Gu Nianji wanted to break up with him, she almost cried in his arms and said Al's name. From that moment on, Alice was a dead person in Hua Xiaoheng's heart. Was he impulsive? Of course he was. A man wouldn't be able to tolerate it at a time like this. The woman he loved had been kidnapped and electrocuted. He was already giving Reinitz face by not killing him. After all, Reinitz had let Gu Nianji go in the end. Otherwise, she wouldn't have returned to his side so quickly. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it carefully and said, "General Ji Zieten was the traitor who directly betrayed the 2 field agents. She definitely has to die. As for Germany's ALS, it was a lesson we taught the German Federal Intelligence Service. They set up a trap in Germany and wanted to reap the benefits, but they still had people behind them. Me attacking ALS was also a warning to the people behind them. Don't think that we're easy to bully. You can casually attack our people without paying the price. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. Only if we beat them into submission will they return to the negotiating table. General G, I remember you once said that the purpose of setting up the Special Operations Forces was to protect our nation's interests overseas. As long as the country and the military can't directly intervene, we, the Special Operations Forces, will intervene. General G was shocked by Huo Xiaoheng's words. Indeed, this was his original intention for establishing the Special Operations Forces. Huo Xiaoheng firmly followed the direction he had pointed out all those years ago, while he, one of the initiators, had unknowingly retreated. Xiaoheng, I'm really glad to see that you have this thought. You didn't forget the responsibility on your shoulders and didn't go against our original intentions. I'm very happy that I didn't misjudge you. General G looked at Huo Xiaoheng encouragingly, the admiration in his eyes almost overflowing. Okay, you don't need to take a vacation and can continue working. However, you can't go overseas for the time being. You have to hand over your passport to me and I have to watch over you. Huo Xiaoheng didn't have any plans to continue overseas for the time being. Or rather, he couldn't leave Gun Yanji before he reconciled with her. Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll have Big Xiong send my passport over to you. Huo Xiaoheng agreed readily. Seeing that General G was very satisfied with his answer, Huo Xiaoheng took the opportunity to say, General G, there's one more thing I have to tell you. What is it? Sit down and talk. General G pointed at the single sofa across from the desk. You've been standing for so long, yet you don't know how to sit down. Huo Xiaoheng smiled and walked over to refill General G's teacup before sitting across from him. I want to tell you about the grave mistake the Deputy Chief of the Special Operations Forces made. Huo Xiaoheng sat upright on the sofa. He violated an important rule and purpose of the Special Operations Forces. He interfered with domestic affairs and is no longer fit to continue being the Deputy Chief of the Special Operations Forces. Huo Xiaoheng was talking about the Deputy Chief and his confidants occupying the Central Control Room for 3 days to provide technical support for the domestic election. General G was a bit embarrassed when he heard that. He smiled sheepishly and said, well, it's like this. We can't completely blame him. It was a joint request from me, Speaker Long, and the 2 Prime Minister candidates. It's not wrong for you, Speaker Long, and the 2 Prime Minister candidates to have such a request. Huo Xiaoheng casually removed General G and the others from the matter. He had no choice but to remove it. After all, he could control the Deputy Chief, but he couldn't control General G, Speaker Long, or the 2 Prime Minister candidates. However, as the second in command of the Special Operations Forces, the Deputy Chief had no position at all. He completely catered to the wishes of others and disregarded the principles of the Special Operations Forces. This was a serious dereliction of duty. Moreover, during the 3 days they occupied the Central Control Room, they missed an important opportunity to deal with the intelligence, which led to serious consequences. If this kind of dereliction of duty is not publicly punished, how can I carry out my work in the future? Will the Special Operations Forces still be a hidden trump card for our country in the future? Huo Xiaoheng elevated this matter to the position of the Special Operations Forces' existence. Even if General G wanted to plead for the Deputy Chief, he would feel embarrassed. However, General G was still in a difficult position. He shook his head and said, you can't say that. Although the Special Operations Forces has the principles of not interfering with domestic affairs, things change as they develop. Moreover, this request was not made by me alone. Speaker Long and the 2 Prime Minister candidates also made this request. Also, let me tell you, this matter has the support of the public. The vast majority of the people believe in the fairness of your organization, so the task of monitoring the voting and counting of votes was given to you. The corners of Huo Xiaoheng's eyes couldn't help but twitch. He suppressed the frustration in his heart and lowered his voice to say, General G, what do you mean by the public? I thought that our organization was hidden in the dark and didn't even have a name for it to be open to the public. How would the public know about our organization? If even ordinary people knew about the existence of our organization, do you think we could still keep it a secret? Could we still do any work? Then we might as well disband. General G choked on Huo Xiaoheng's words. He frowned and thought for a moment before saying, actually, this was said by the 2 Prime Minister candidates. They said that based on the public opinion, they hoped that an impartial third party, unrelated to either of them, would be able to monitor the voting and counting of votes. They instructed your organization. Huo Xiaoheng only wanted to chuckle. These 2 Prime Minister candidates were really good at manipulating elections. The public was the scapegoat, and they could take the blame for everything. He leaned forward and looked directly into General G's eyes. He said word by word, General G, I think that you and Speaker Long had good intentions, But these two prime minister candidates took advantage of your good intentions. Their request was really out of line. If they really guided the public to choose the Special Operations Forces as their escort for the election, then they committed a serious act of leaking information. Don't think that directly contacting the enemy is considered leaking information. If they expose their own secrets like this, it's definitely a leak. General G's heart skipped a beat. He narrowed his eyes and looked thoughtfully at the multi-treasure pavilion across from him. Hua Xiaoheng's words made him think of something bad. Sending Hua Xiaoheng to the United States to save Tan Guiren was a joint operation between the Tans and the Kais. Gu Nianji going to Germany was inextricably linked to the Bai family. And these two families had actually reached an agreement at the last moment of the election to target the Special Operations Forces. Thinking about this, General G also felt very uncomfortable. No one would feel at ease being used by someone else. His face darkened as he nodded slowly at Hua Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng, you've thought it through. I'm afraid this matter isn't as simple as it seems. General G is wise. Hua Xiaoheng quickly complimented General G, making him feel both comfortable and embarrassed. He pointed at Hua Xiaoheng with a smile. I was just praising you for being calm earlier and now you're talking nonsense. What status do you have now? Aren't you afraid people will laugh at you for talking like that? Hua Xiaoheng smiled. I'll always be your subordinate in front of you. Without your wise leadership, my work wouldn't have progressed so smoothly. He wasn't completely sucking up to General G, because General G had indeed provided the greatest support to the Special Operations Forces. He was also their greatest backing. Whatever Hua Xiaoheng wanted to do, he could achieve twice the results with half the effort if he had General G's support. General G was finally satisfied with Hua Xiaoheng's words and waved his hand. Speak. What do you want to do? I'll be on your side. Chief is wise. Hua Xiaoheng stood up and saluted General G. I'm relieved to hear that. It's like this. Since you've spoken up for the deputy chief's mistake, I won't punish him severely. Originally, he was guilty of dereliction of duty and should have been imprisoned for life, but for your sake, I'll just remove him from his position as deputy chief. General G pointed at Hua Xiaoheng and smiled knowingly. Tricks. It's all tricks. Tell me, who do you want to promote? I think it's better to have two deputy chiefs. That way there won't be a situation like this, Hua Xiaoheng said calmly. Big Xiong and Little Zhe are also very capable. They've been my personal secretaries for so many years, and they've never made any mistakes. I think they're both qualified to be deputy chiefs. This way they can better assist me in carrying out my work. It was the second watch. I have to remind everyone of your recommendation votes. There would be 3 watch tomorrow and the first watch would be very early. You can watch the next watch at 12:30 tonight if you haven't slept yet. It would be Monday after 12 o'clock, so don't forget your recommendation votes for the new week. Moi. Chapter 7:16. You want to promote Big Xiong and Little Zhe? General G had a hard time holding it in and almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. Xiaoheng, you really don't shy away from family. Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He waited for General G to finish laughing before saying with a smile, You're making fun of me, Chief. Big Xiong and Little Zhe aren't my relatives, so it's not appropriate to say that I don't shy away from family. But they're your personal secretaries? Yes, I was your follower back then? Hua Xiaoheng raised his brows calmly. You promoted me so vigorously. Did anyone say that you don't shy away from family? Well said. Actually, when we promote talents, the key word is talent. As long as we know he's talented and hasn't made any mistakes, why can't we promote him? That's the way you should be. As long as you have a clear conscience and it's for the benefit of the nation, you don't have to be restricted or afraid of gossip. I'm the least afraid of gossip. Hua Xiaoheng nodded with a half-smile. Also, in our line of work, we don't need fame. We can't even expose ourselves. He discussed with General G for a while more before finally making his last request. General G, this time the 2 prime minister candidates made our work very passive. It can be said that the losses we suffered this time were purely caused by their unreasonable requests. Also, I have reason to suspect that they have a mole planted by the enemy. General G's expression instantly turned serious. He glared at Hua Xiaoheng and said in a low voice, Xiaoheng, you can't say something like that. Tan Dongbang is now the new prime minister, and I heard that he will continue to appoint Bai Jianqing as the Minister of Internal Affairs. Although these two fought fiercely during the election, they've obviously reconciled now. If you say they have a mole by their side, the consequences will be very serious. I know, that's why I discussed it with you. Right now it's just our suspicion and it's not baseless. It's a reasonable inference based on their recent actions and the losses they've caused us. Hua Xiaoheng paused. Seeing that General Ji seemed to have understood, he continued, originally, I was most troubled by the fact that the Special Operations Forces can't interfere with domestic affairs, so even if they have a mole planted by the enemy, there's nothing we can do. General Ji immediately understood. He laughed and slapped the desk. Xiaoheng, you really can't take any losses. Tell me, what do you want? Give him a taste of his own medicine? You're so wise, Chief. Hua Xiaoheng smiled. You see, you really raised me up. You know what I'm thinking. According to the mission and regulations, the Special Operations Forces could not interfere with domestic affairs. This was the bottom line that the higher-ups had set for them in the past. But this bottom line was broken by the public opinion of the two prime minister candidates. The Special Operations Forces had already interfered with domestic affairs, so to Hua Xiaoheng, it would be unfair to the country, the organization, and the public if he didn't take advantage of them. Even if the other party found out in the end, they could still openly fight back. You can't be the only one who can use public opinion to ask us to do things for you, and we can also follow public opinion to monitor your actions, right? Don't you trust the special forces the most? Even the election requires us to monitor the voting and counting, so what's wrong with us monitoring your actions? We also have to be responsible for public opinion. After all, we represented public opinion and watched you elect. Good. We did suffer heavy losses this time, so we should make them pay. Also, they broke the rules first and used us as weapons. Of course we have to retaliate. General Ji nodded approvingly. You want to monitor the people around them? Good idea, Chief. Hua Xiaoheng looked completely convinced. I didn't even think of this, but you already thought of it. You're really not old. You're a role model for our generation. General Ji was delighted by Hua Xiaoheng's words. He looked up and laughed for a while. Okay, do what you want. As for them, there's no need to inform them. Can you do it? This was to allow Hua Xiaoheng to monitor the people in the cabinet, but before he had concrete evidence, he couldn't let them find out. Otherwise, General Ji wouldn't be able to take the blame. Hua Xiaoheng had monitored foreign intelligence agencies for many years. This time he had no choice but to deal with a domestic agency. All signs pointed to the fact that the mastermind with ulterior motives towards Gunyanji was in the Huaxia Empire. If he still rigidly adhered to the original operational rules and objectives of the Special Operations Forces and refused to respond to domestic affairs, what awaited him in Gunyanji would be even fiercer follow-up attacks and hunts. He couldn't just sit and wait for death, and he couldn't just watch Gunyanji fall into the enemy's trap. The enemy also misjudged him and thought that people like Hua Xiaoheng would never interfere with domestic affairs, so they hid in the domestic agencies. However, nothing was absolute in this world, and now it was time for the enemy to not think. It was already dawn when Hua Xiaoheng left General Ji's house. He hadn't slept for 2 days and 2 nights, but he was still full of energy and didn't feel sleepy at all. When he returned to the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces, Hua Xiaoheng quickly called for a special meeting to calm everyone's unease. At the same time, he announced that because the deputy chief had violated the operational rules and objectives of the Special Operations Forces by interfering with domestic affairs, he should be sent to the military court to be punished. However, because he had the joint guarantee of the 2 prime minister candidates, he wouldn't be sent to the military court. He would only be dismissed on the spot and transferred to the logistics office as the office director. The deputy chief was still being held in the detention center by the Department of Discipline. His dismissal didn't require anyone's approval because Hua Xiaoheng had complete personnel rights. However, for a position like the deputy chief, even if he could make decisions on his own, he definitely couldn't make decisions on his own. Therefore, he pulled General Ji to support him. With General Ji's support, he had a good reason to take action. Also, after the Department of Discipline's thunderous attack, everyone was mentally prepared for the deputy chief's dismissal, so it didn't cause too much trouble. However, Hua Xiaoheng's subsequent announcement of appointing Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang as the new deputy chief surprised everyone. These 2 people had much more experience in the Special Operations Forces than the deputy chief who had been dropped in. Also, these 2 people were especially popular, so their promotions were almost expected by everyone. Congratulations. Big Xiong. Treat. Little Zhe. You're in high spirits because of a happy occasion. The conference room instantly fell into a joyous atmosphere. The low pressure that had enveloped the Special Operations Forces headquarters these past few days was swept away. Everyone's morale was high again, and they felt like they had a pillar to work towards. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi were also pleasantly surprised. They didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to fight for such a high position and such good treatment for them. After all, once they were promoted to deputy chief, they would immediately be promoted to colonel. Soon, senior colonel wouldn't be out of reach. Hua Xiaoheng smiled as he watched everyone in the conference room cheering. He gave Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi a look and quietly left the conference room alone. Without him present, everyone was even more excited. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi also knew that Hua Xiaoheng was intentionally giving them a chance to get along better with these people, so they readily said, "Sure. Where do we go to eat? We'll treat all of us today." Hua Xiaoheng stood in the hallway for a while and unconsciously took out another cigarette, lit it and took a deep drag. Looking at his watch, it was already past 7 in the morning. He left the building and went to the base cafeteria to buy 2 breakfasts, then brought them to Qinlai's office. Outside Qinlai's office was a special single-patient room, where Gu Nianji was currently staying. Hua Xiaoheng knocked on the door but there was no sound from inside. He turned the lock and found that the door wasn't locked, so he pushed it open. There was a white screen in the middle of the room, and on the other side of the screen was a single-patient bed. Hua Xiaoheng walked around the screen and saw Gu Nianji sleeping on the bed. Her small face was fair and clear, and her red lips were full and moist. Her complexion was much better than 2 days ago. Hua Xiaoheng didn't feel happy to see Gu Nianji recover so quickly. Instead, he sighed and felt pity for her. Placing the breakfast on the small table next to the bed, Hua Xiaoheng sat by Gu Nianji's bed and tucked her in. He also checked her forehead to see that she didn't have a fever and her temperature was normal. Qinlai heard the noise and came out of his office to look. With a bitter expression he said, "Hua Xiao? You're finally here. Nianji is clamoring to be discharged. I can't handle it anymore." Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Thank you. Here, have you had breakfast yet?" Hua Xiaoheng passed the breakfast he bought to Qinlai. Beef buns, millet porridge, boiled egg and milk tea. Qinlai took it without hesitation. "I stayed up all night last night, so I'm hungry." "Stayed up all night? What are you doing?" Hua Xiaoheng saw that Gu Nianji was still sleeping, so he didn't wake her up. He followed Qinlai into his office and sat down. Qinlai ate the beef buns as he said to Hua Xiaoheng, "I'm reading the medical papers I found from Dr. Yi." Hua Xiaoheng understood. Those people gave her bait? Qinlai nodded and praised, "Those people are also stupid. They should have just given such a good paper to me. They didn't have to bribe Dr. Yi." Hua Xiaoheng snorted. "Don't talk nonsense. Is it really that good?" Qinlai stopped smiling and said sternly, "Luckily you found Dr. Yi. Otherwise, Nianji wouldn't have survived." "The paper has something to do with Nianji?" Hua Xiaoheng was even more surprised. He hadn't looked at the material yet. To be precise, it has something to do with her physique. The data in the paper that those people gave Dr. Yi was frontier research on rapid cell repair. Qinlai picked up a pen and tapped on the paper. "Don't worry, I'll burn it after reading it. To be honest, although it's very advanced, it's not as advanced as Dr. Yi thinks." Qinlai smiled. He was already very calm when talking about Yi Zitan. "We're also conducting a lot of research. Dr. Yi is indeed a bit lacking in talent. Otherwise, our research team would have accepted her. This was the first watch. It was the third watch today. Oh, intersection. Oh, it was Monday and I forgot the recommendation ticket list. The second watch was at 1 p.m., and it was for the 50,000 Chidian dollars that Alliance leader Jiu had tipped on the last day of December last year. I almost forgot and only remembered when I flipped through my notebook yesterday. I hope the Alliance leader won't blame me. There was the third watch at 7 p.m. Chapter 717. Hua Xiaoheng expressionlessly took the thesis from Qinlai's hands and skimmed through it. After reading it, he agreed with Qinlai. It's definitely something, but not as good as Yi Zitan said. However, I think they didn't bring out the real thing. These are just bait to get Yi Zitan's interest. The potential displayed by Gu Nianji's physique was many times greater than the data provided in the thesis. Although Qinlai really coveted Gu Nianji's special constitution, he wasn't like Yi Zitan who would do anything for the sake of scientific research. Moreover, he had watched Gu Nianji grow up. Not many people would be willing to let their own cats and dogs be experimented on, let alone a living person. Qinlai completely agreed with Hua Xiaoheng and said bitterly, "You're thinking the same thing as me. But after reading this I feel a lot more at ease. Otherwise they would really think they're so capable and leave us far behind. That would be terrible." Hua Xiaoheng nodded and threw the paper into the stainless steel bin. He then took out the Zippo lighter Gunyenji had given him and lit it up. Of course, Zhao Liangzi had already deleted the original copy in the mailbox. It was best not to let people know about these things. Chunlai shook his head and asked Hu Xiaoheng, "You've been out on another mission for the past 2 days, haven't you? You're already a major general and the leader of the Special Operations Forces. Why do you still have to do everything yourself? Don't tell me you don't understand the logic of a rich man sitting in a chair?" Hu Xiaoheng put one hand in his pocket and the other on Chunlai's desk. He stretched his long legs and said calmly, "Some things have to be done personally to be at ease." Chunlai looked at him nervously. "Where did you go? Don't tell me you went to Germany." "I went." Hu Xiaoheng's voice turned cold. "They dared to touch our people. How can I not teach them a lesson?" Chunlai stared at him for a long time before leaning over and whispering, "Don't talk so sanctimoniously to me. Tell me honestly, was it because of Nianji that you went to vent your anger?" "Why should I vent my anger?" Hu Xiaoheng calmly denied it. "I did it for the benefit of the country and to avenge our field personnel. That's why I asked Mr. Ailes to take a bullet." "Who is Ailes?" "The director of Germany's Federal Intelligence Agency." Hu Xiaoheng expressionlessly raised his right hand and gestured a pistol. "One shot to the forehead. The super micro-precision bullet will only explode in the skull. It will definitely not pollute the environment." Chunlai sucked in a sharp breath. "You're too King cruel. What did ALS do to incur the wrath of the heavens? Aren't those bullets banned? 2 field agents died in their hands and he electrocuted Nianji," Hu Xiaoheng said coldly. "You deserve it. Serves you right. You should have given him a few more super micro-precision bombs." Chunlai was furious. "Are you even human? Nianji wasn't a secret agent. An innocent little girl. He's crazy. You asked me to pick Nianji up at the airport that day because of this?" Hu Xiaoheng nodded, and a trace of darkness flashed across his eyes. "Haha, and you still say it wasn't for Nianji?" Chunlai snapped back to reality and glared at Hu Xiaoheng with disdain. "T. You even asked him to take a bullet? Would you eat if I paid?" "Of course I paid. I didn't ask him to pay for the bullets. Don't you think I should be the one paying?" Hu Xiaoheng leaned back and rested both hands on the armrests. He tapped his fingers lightly and said nonchalantly, "This time I really have to clean up the team. In the past I was too embarrassed to use all my people, but now I won't stand on ceremony. I just promoted Big Xiong and Little Zay to deputy chief in the Special Operations Forces." Chunlai grinned and nodded vigorously. "Not bad, Hu Xiao. You'll really make this place watertight in the future." "Haha, I had no choice. I was forced to do this." Hu Xiaoheng smiled faintly and shrugged. He stood up and was about to leave when he heard Gu Nianji's sweet and soft voice from outside the door. "Brother Qin, I can be discharged today, right?" She clearly wasn't calling Hu Xiaoheng, but the voice still made Hu Xiaoheng's calm heart skip a few beats. Chunlai smiled bitterly and pointed in the direction of the door. He said to Hu Xiaoheng, "Did you hear that? For the past 2 days, you've been clamoring to be discharged the moment you wake up. I've been looking for excuses to delay it, and now my white hair has grown out." He pointed at the top of his head as he spoke. Hu Xiaoheng glanced at it and said coolly, "I don't see any white hair, but I seem to have gone bald again." Chunlai was furious and threw the documents on the desk at Hu Xiaoheng. "Get out." Hu Xiaoheng easily dodged it and turned to walk out of the room. He said quietly, "Don't come out later." "I want to come out. I'll be the big third wheel." "What are you going to do about it?" Chunlai grabbed the mirror angrily and looked at the top of his head carefully. Was he really bald again equals under? Gunyenji opened her eyes and began to harass Chunlai. She really wanted to be discharged. Staying here meant she couldn't do many of the things she had planned. Also, she wanted to go back to school and especially missed Ma Chichi. She couldn't be discharged for the next 2 days, so she kept thinking about things. She thought about how He Jichu and Hu Xiaoheng were able to find her location in time because of Ma Chichi's help. When Gunyenji was in trouble, the only people she could contact were Ma Chichi and Chunlai. Because of Yi Zieten, Chunlai must not have gotten the news. Then Ma Chichi was the only one who had really helped. Gunyenji was extremely grateful to her. Hu Xiaoheng came out of Chunlai's office and walked around the screen to Gunyenji's bed. He saw that she had already changed into a patient's gown and was lying on the bed, bored. One of her long legs was raised high in the air, and she was doing some kicking exercises on the bed. Her snow-white toes were pink and tender, round and plump, and her toenails shone like pearls. The corners of Hu Xiaoheng's mouth twitched. He looked away as if nothing had happened and said calmly, "You're awake? Are you feeling better?" Gu Nianji finally saw that it was Hua Xiaoheng coming out of Qinlai's office. Her brows furrowed imperceptibly, and she quickly put down her legs and covered herself with the blanket. She said unhappily, "Mr. Hua, this is a female ward. Didn't you knock when you came in?" Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Qinlai heard it from the office and couldn't stop smiling. He secretly gave Gu Nianji a thumbs up. He looked in the mirror and counted the hair on the top of his head as he listened to the two people arguing in the ward outside. Gu Nianji glanced at the half-closed door and rolled up the blanket to cover herself tightly. She said to Hua Xiaoheng, "Mr. Hua, I'm going to get up and wash up. Can you go out for a while?" Hua Xiaoheng took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and put one in his mouth. He nodded. "Okay, go ahead." He turned to leave but didn't hear Gu Nianji's voice telling him not to smoke. Gu Nianji only looked at his back. Her eyes dimmed, and she finally swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She lay quietly on the bed for a while before lifting the blanket and getting out of bed. She put on her slippers and didn't go to the bathroom to wash up. Instead, she went to knock on Qinlai's office door. "Brother Qin, are you inside?" Qinlai froze in the office. "Nianji? Are you alone?" "Yeah, Mr. Hua went out." Gu Nianji pushed open the unlatched door and went in. Qinlai quickly pushed the mirror down and said uncomfortably, "Nianji, what's the matter?" Gu Nianji crossed her arms and leaned against the door of Qinlai's office. She said unhappily, "I asked Brother Qin when I can be discharged. If you don't let me out, I'm going to sue you for illegal confinement." Qinlai quickly raised his hands. "Calm down, little lady. Your brother Qin is timid and can't take your scares. Fine, you can be discharged. You can be discharged today." "Really?" Gu Nianji's mood improved instantly. She smiled and put down her arms. "Can I really leave now?" "Of course. But you should change your clothes." Qinlai nodded at her and waved at her. Gu Nianji walked to his desk. "What's the matter? Brother Qin?" "Nianji, let Brother Qin give you a piece of advice. There should be a limit to how spoiled you can be. Hua Xiao isn't a very patient person and he really is very busy. He just went to Germany 2 days ago and personally killed the director of the German Federal Intelligence Service, ALS. He hasn't slept for 2 days and 2 nights. Stop messing around. Look at the bruises under his eyes." Qinlai blinked his round eyes and whispered to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji was shocked. Her eyes widened and she asked in a low voice, "What? Just these 2 days? You killed ALS?" "Yeah, you know this person, right?" Qinlai moved closer. "Was this person the one who electrocuted you?" Gu Nianji remembered the pain she felt that day. She instinctively grasped the fingers of her left hand and nodded lightly. "Yeah, he electrocuted my fingers." When Qinlai heard this, he felt a burning pain in his fingers. ALS was such a pervert. Electrocuting was one thing, but he chose the most painful spot to electrocute. The fingers were connected to the heart. Didn't he understand? What a bastard. Qinlai quickly comforted Gu Nianji. "Nianji, look, Hua Xiao has already avenged you. Don't be so hard on him, okay?" Gu Nianji didn't like hearing Qinlai say that, but she also knew that almost everyone who knew her and Hua Xiaoheng would think that she didn't know what was good for her, that she was arrogant, and that she was unreasonable. But did they ever think that regardless of whether ALS was killed or not, the pain she felt couldn't be ignored? She would rather be chased to death than disturb Hua Xiaoheng. What was he doing? So it was too late. But she was still grateful to Hua Xiaoheng for killing ALS and avenging the blood debt of the other 2 field agents. This was a separate matter. Gu Nianji nodded calmly. "Brother Qin, you don't have to worry about what happened between him and me. He killed ALS, so of course I'm grateful to him. But ALS also killed 2 of our field agents. With his personality, he will definitely return the favor. So you must say that he killed ALS because of me. You are belittling him. But don't worry, I won't argue with him." They broke up peacefully. Why would they argue? This was the second update. It was an update for the 50,000 Chidian dollars that Alliance leader Yu had rewarded on the last day of December last year. Today was the third update. Oh, intersection. Oh, it's been too long. I hope Alliance leader Yu won't blame me. Also, today is Monday. Everyone, remember to vote for the recommendation. Chapter 7:18. Qinlai chuckled and tilted his head. "Who's him? Who is he?" "Nianji, I don't understand why you keep saying him, and him." Gu Nianji rolled her eyes at Qinlai. "Brother Qin, if you don't understand, then so be it. I'm not in charge of teaching. Coming out of Qinlai's office, Gu Nianji went to the bathroom to wash up and change out of her hospital gown. She changed into the clean hoodie, yoga pants, and a pair of RA1PH Lauren flats. She came out of the bathroom looking refreshed. She then packed her belongings into a large cloth bag and carried it out the door. In the hallway, Hua Xiaoheng's tall figure almost blocked the sunlight coming in through the window. Gu Nianji lowered her eyes and really wanted to sneak away from Hua Xiaoheng. But Hua Xiaoheng heard the door open and turned in time to see Gu Nianji dressed freshly with lowered eyelashes. He called out to her. "Nianji, where are you going?" Gu Nianji composed herself and looked up at Hua Xiaoheng with a smile. "Mr. Hua, I was just about to look for you. Brother Qin said I can be discharged now. I want to go to your official residence to pack my things and go back to school." She was obviously still thinking about breaking up and splitting the assets. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Let's go. I'll take you there." He walked towards Gu Nianji and habitually wrapped his arm around her back and gently placed it on her left shoulder. He pulled her into his arms in a domineering manner. Gu Nianji moved to the side and left Hua Xiaoheng's embrace. "Mr. Hua, I said we broke up. What do you mean by this?" Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and said calmly, "I said I'd think about it. Why are you in such a hurry?" "I'm in a hurry?" Gu Nianji was furious, but when she saw Hua Xiaoheng's unwavering composure, she felt that she couldn't act like a child in front of him. She suppressed her anger and turned to walk towards the elevator. "Then you should think about it quickly. Legally, you can even file for divorce unilaterally. I'm giving you face, so don't make it difficult for me." Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and followed her into the elevator. The two of them stood in the elevator, one on the left and the other on the right, both looking straight ahead. There were mirrors on all four sides of the elevator. Although the two of them weren't looking at each other, they could see each other's expressions and movements in the mirror in front of them. Gu Nianji only glanced at it before looking down at the marble floor beneath her feet. He could only see Gu Nianji's dark hair in the mirror, but he couldn't see her face. Hua Xiaoheng sighed internally and reached out to take the cloth bag from Gu Nianji's hand. Gu Nianji originally didn't want to, but Hua Xiaoheng was too strong, and she didn't want to struggle with him in the elevator. It was too embarrassing, so she struggled for a while and finally let go. Hua Xiaoheng took the bag and glanced at it. He saw a small Hermes leather bag that he had never seen before. "Did you buy this bag yourself?" Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but ask. He thought of the birthday present he had sent her, but he couldn't ask in the elevator. Gu Nianji nodded and said calmly, "The bucket bag you gave me, I threw it away when I was running for my life in the Alps." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Gu Nianji glanced at him and explained, "They sent fake police to catch me, so I escaped by wading in the river. The bag sank like a rock once it entered the water." "Yeah." Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "You should have thrown it away. Your life is more important. If you like that bag, I'll have someone look for it in France." Gu Nianji quickly shook her head. "No need, I don't like that kind of bag anymore." Hua Xiaoheng looked ahead and didn't say anything else. The two of them arrived at Hua Xiaoheng's official residence in silence and entered Gu Nianji's suite. Her room was opposite Hua Xiaoheng's and was also on the second floor. Hua Xiaoheng stood at the door and had no intention of going in. He handed the cloth bag to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji let him in. "Mr. Hua, come in. I'll give you the key." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and saw that she didn't seem to be joking, so he followed Gu Nianji into the room. Gu Nianji went straight to the bedroom inside. There was an oil painting on the east wall of the bedroom. Gu Nianji lifted the painting to reveal a built-in safe on the wall. Gu Nianji went to the bottom drawer of her dresser to find the key. After entering the password and fingerprint into the safe, she opened it with the key. This type of safe used fingerprint and iris technology as well as the original password mechanical lock for double security. Opening the safe, Gu Nianji took out the property ownership certificate, various deposit receipts, investment account stubs, and a box of jewelry and placed them on the bed in a row. Hua Xiaoheng's hands were still in his trouser pockets. He stood ramrod straight and didn't walk over. Instead, he stood by Gu Nianji's bedroom door and frowned. "Nianji, do you really want to be so clear with me?" "Mr. Hua, I know you don't believe that I really want to break up with you." Gu Nianji arranged the things like she was setting up a stall. She turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng at the door. "It doesn't matter what I say, but these things can show my sincerity." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her deeply and slowly leaned against the door. His long legs were bent and he stood leisurely. He said calmly, "Nianji, I think you remember that I said I needed to think about it." "Yeah, you can think about it." Gu Nianji raised her brows in disapproval. "This is something I have to do." She pointed at the property ownership certificates. "Actually, from a legal point of view, Mr. Hua, These property ownership certificates are not legal. I wasn't there when you transferred the ownership and I didn't sign the power of attorney. Also, I wasn't even 18 when you transferred the property in C City to me, so it's completely invalid. Hua Xiaoheng began to have a headache. How was he going to change the mind of a young girl who was smart and well-versed in the law? He rubbed his forehead and took a deep breath. Fine, I'll forget about these properties. But those deposit receipts and investment accounts. Yeah, it's the same. Your transfer is also not legal. But according to the law, these things can be ignored without a lawsuit. So as long as I don't file a lawsuit, they're not illegal. But if you don't take them back, I'll have to file a lawsuit in court. Gu Nianji smiled as she walked to the closet and took out some of her clothes, shoes, and skincare products. She also planned to move the clothes, shoes, and bags from the 10-ping cloakroom after her own apartment was settled. Thinking about her apartment, Gu Nianji urged, I hope Mr. Hua can change these property ownership certificates back to your name as soon as possible. It's best if you can get it done today. I know Mr. Hua has the ability, don't you? She turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng and winked playfully. Hua Xiaoheng's hands in his trouser pockets were itching. A little girl like this who liked to cause trouble should be dragged over his lap and spanked. Gu Nianji had really let go of herself. She no longer blushed when she faced Hua Xiaoheng's handsome face, nor did she try to show her best side in front of him. In fact, always remembering to let the other person see the best side of herself wouldn't last long. When two people were together, they could only feel comfortable with each other's truest side. They didn't need to pretend or suck up to each other. Only then could they last. Hua Xiaoheng walked to Gu Nianji's bedside and looked down at the bed filled with all kinds of identification documents and letters, as well as an exquisitely made mahogany box. He said, Okay, I'll get it changed later. Can you get it done faster? Like today? Gu Nianji packed her clothes in the large LV suitcase. I know Mr. Hua can do it. Can you not make it difficult for a normal person like me? Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at her and asked dryly, Why does it have to be today? Actually, it doesn't have to be today. I just want it to be done as soon as possible. Gu Nianji cocked her head. I've already chosen a second-hand house near the school. I want to get a loan to buy it. If I have other properties under my name, I won't be able to get a loan. You want to buy a house? Hua Xiaoheng's brows really furrowed. Why do you want to buy a second-hand house? If you really want to buy a house, I can sell this house to you. He pointed to a house in the Xiangshan Villa district in the imperial capital. It's not far from your school. It's a 15-minute drive. Speaking of cars, Gu Nianji slapped her forehead. Oh, I forgot. There's still that car. As she spoke, she went to her desk drawer and found the car keys for the red custom-made Ferrari sports car. She put them together next to the property ownership certificates. It was the third watch. It was the third watch today. Oh, and also today is Monday, so remember to vote for the recommendation. Chapter 719. Hua Xiaoheng's expression gradually darkened. He bent down to pick up the car key from Gu Nianji's bed and looked at it. This is a Valentine's Day gift for you. It's fine if you return the other things to me, but you're returning this too. Do you think I'm the kind of B*TCH who would take back all the gifts after breaking up with my girlfriend? Gu Nianji was speechless. She suddenly blushed. Indeed, this gift was different from the others. This was the first and last Valentine's Day gift Hua Xiaoheng had given her after they confirmed their relationship. Gu Nianji bit her lower lip and spread her hands at Hua Xiaoheng. It's my fault. Give me the car key. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and placed the car key in her soft, fair palm. His large hand wrapped around her hand and clasped it tightly before letting go. She wanted to say something but couldn't find the words, so she simply stopped talking. He stood to the side and watched coldly as Gu Nianji packed her daily necessities, clothes, and shoes into the LV suitcase. There were 4 suitcases in total, and the entire suitcase was filled. Gu Nianji looked at the remaining clothes in the closet and closed the closet door. I'll leave these here for now. I'll come and move when I'm done with the house. She then looked at Hua Xiaoheng. Mr. Hua, can you keep this room for a few days? When I'm done with the house and move my things, can I let someone else live in it? Hua Xiaoheng nodded. This is your room. If you don't live in it, it'll be empty. You don't have to do that. Isn't it a waste to leave such a large room empty? Gu Nianji shook her head. Really? That's fine. When your things are moved out, I'll move in. Hua Xiaoheng only wanted to shut Gu Nianji up. To others, her words might not sound like a normal breakup between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, but to Hua Xiaoheng, it was exceptionally heart-wrenching. Gu Nianji looked at him and hesitated to speak. If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you hesitating? Hua Xiaoheng sat down. Gu Nianji raised her chin towards the bathroom. Mr. Hua, if you're moving in, the bathroom will have to be renovated. What's wrong? Is the bathroom broken? Hua Xiaoheng got up to go to the bathroom. Gu Nianji said quietly behind him. Can Major General Hua really use the pink bathroom? Hua Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks. He did not continue to walk towards the bathroom. He turned around and looked at Gu Nianji helplessly. After a while he said, It's okay. If you can use it, I can use it. She looked down at the large and small boxes on the ground and said, Mr. Hua, can I ask Brother Xiong or Brother Zhe to take me back to school? Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi were Hua Xiaoheng's personal secretaries, so of course she had to get Hua Xiaoheng's permission before asking for their help. Hua Xiaoheng walked to Gu Nianji's side and bent down to help her lift the largest box. Big Xiong and Little Zhe just got promoted, so they should be celebrating with their colleagues now. They're very busy and don't have time. I'll take you back to school. Gu Nianji stopped Hua Xiaoheng and smiled. How can I do that? Mr. Hua has a high status and is very busy. I don't have the face to ask you to be my driver. I'd better give Brother Xiong a call. No matter what, I have to congratulate him on his promotion first. Seeing Gu Nianji look for the landline, Hua Xiaoheng realized she must have left her phone in the Alps. He took out his phone from his pocket and unlocked it to pass to her. Use mine. Gu Nianji thought Hua Xiaoheng did not want her to use their landline, so she took the phone and said, Thank you. She looked down to open Hua Xiaoheng's contact book and entered Yin Shixiang's number. The phone had just rung when Yin Shixiang picked up and said with a smile, Hua Xiao? Do you want to join us? Gu Nianji laughed. Brother Xiong, congratulations on your promotion. Yin Shixiang finally realized it was not Hua Xiaoheng calling him, but Gu Nianji using Hua Xiaoheng's phone. He smiled even more happily and said loudly, Nianji, come and have fun with Hua Xiao. There are a lot of people here and you know them all. Little Zhe and a few colleagues who used to work for you. We have barbecue, a seafood buffet and karaoke. Gu Nianji heard the commotion on the other end and realized there were indeed a lot of people. She smiled widely and said, Thank you Brother Xiong, but it's okay. I just wanted to congratulate you. And Brother Zhe helped me get it. Yin Shixiang was high from the alcohol and snapped his fingers. No problem. Gu Nianji hung up and thought about it before asking Hua Xiaoheng, Mr. Hua, can I use your phone to make another call? Hua Xiaoheng raised his hand. Go ahead. Gu Nianji recalled He Zhichu's phone number and the B University Professor's Building's landline number. She was debating which one to call when Hua Xiaoheng's phone suddenly rang. Gu Nianji instinctively thought it was Yin Shixiang calling again, so she answered. The operator's voice came from the phone. Hua Xiao, Prime Minister Tan Dongbang's office is calling. Do you want to take it? Gu Nianji's smile faded as she handed the phone back to Hua Xiaoheng without saying anything. Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He took the phone and originally wanted to use his Bluetooth headset to take the call, but he saw Gu Nianji turn around to take her suitcase. He put it down and pressed the speaker button to say to the operator, Put it through. An extremely gentle voice quickly came from the phone. Is this Hua Xiao? I'm Tan Guiren. Hua Xiaoheng heard Tan Guiren's voice and quickly glanced at Gu Nianji. He saw that she was still packing her suitcase with her back to him and didn't seem to be out of the ordinary. He frowned and grunted at the phone. Hello Miss Tan. May I ask what I can help you with? Tan Guiren blushed when she heard Hua Xiaoheng's voice. Mustering her courage, she asked with a slightly trembling voice, Mr. Hua, my father's inauguration is in 5 days. I would like to invite Mr. Hua to attend the ceremony. Are you free? Gu Nianji had her back to Hua Xiaoheng, so she heard everything clearly. Although she was mentally prepared and knew that Hua Xiaoheng didn't have any personal feelings for Tan Guiren, she was still a bit dazed when she heard her slightly nervous and shy invitation. Was it another girl who was charmed by Hua Xiaoheng's charm? Gu Nianji recalled the video she saw. It seemed to be a beautiful woman with a very good temperament. She was about the same age as Hua Xiaoheng and had a compatible family background. In the eyes of outsiders, she would definitely be more suitable than Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and felt very uncomfortable. However, that kind of discomfort wasn't the discomfort of the man she loved liking someone else, but the discomfort of being looked down upon, and ignored. Everyone said she wasn't good enough for Hua Xiaoheng. She really didn't have the strength to fight against the cold eyes of the world. Gunyanji packed her suitcases one by one and locked them with a combination lock. She planned to call Hijichu's phone first. If she couldn't get through, she would call his landline at the B University professor's building. She didn't know what Hijichu had been doing for the past 2 days. He hadn't contacted her, and she was locked in the hospital room by Qinlai. She had almost no contact with the outside world. Meanwhile, Hua Xiaoheng politely declined Tan Gairen's invitation on the phone. "Miss Tan, I've been overseas for a few months and have accumulated a lot of unfinished work. I won't be free for the next few months. Please pass my thanks to Prime Minister Tan on my behalf and congratulate him on being elected as the new Prime Minister." Tan Guiren was very disappointed. Biting her lower lip, she hesitated for a while before asking, "Hua Xiao, you attending my father's inauguration is also part of your job, right?" After all, Hua Xiaoheng was also a general in the military and a member of the government. When Tan Dongbang was inaugurated as the new Prime Minister, senior officials from the government, the military, and the Senate would all attend. Those who couldn't attend either weren't invited or were too sick to get out of bed. Tan Guiren really didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to reject her outright and couldn't help trying to persuade him in a low voice. Once Hua Xiaoheng had made up his mind, no one could persuade him otherwise. He smiled perfunctorily and said, "Miss Tan, may I ask if you are a government employee in the cabinet? Or are you Prime Minister Tan's personal assistant?" Tan Guiren was taken aback and shook her head. "Neither. I just came back from abroad and my body is still a little weak. My mommy said that I need to take care of myself." Before she could finish, Hua Xiaoheng already said politely, "In that case, you have no right to invite me to attend the Prime Minister's inauguration. Alright, I'm very busy right now. If there's anything, ask Prime Minister Tan's office to call my secretary." He hung up after speaking. Tan Gairen's face burned from Hua Xiaoheng's words. Tears welled up in her eyes and she almost couldn't hold it in anymore. Her mother, Kai Songyin, came in from outside and knocked on the door. She asked with a smile, "How did it go? Did Hua Xiao agree?" Tan Guiren said shamefully, "I was too rash. Hua Xiao is a senior military general and I'm nothing. I called to invite him, but of course he wouldn't come." "He wouldn't come? That's impossible, right?" Kai Songyin was very confused. "Are you sure you're not mistaken? No matter who invited him, this is your father's inauguration. How could he refuse? Also, you're your father's only daughter, so you'll have to stand with your father when the time comes. How could he give up this opportunity to show his face?" Tan Gairen's heart was in a mess and she was very embarrassed. She quickly said, "Mommy, I have no other choice. I'll go back first." Tan Guiren hurried back to her home and closed the door. Gu Nianji saw that Hua Xiaoheng had finished his call, so she turned around and said, "Mr. Hua was invited to attend the inauguration. Why didn't you go? This is really part of your job, right?" Hua Xiaoheng weighed the largest suitcase in his hands and said, "No, my job doesn't include attending the Prime Minister's inauguration." Gu Nianji smiled and said, "But what if she sprains her ankle during the inauguration? If you're not there, who's going to help her? This is the first night watch. It's still the third night watch today. I have to remind you about the recommendation tickets. I was reminded by my deputy yesterday that I still owe the Prime Minister of the Guanghan Palace an extra update. The Prime Minister, I've let you down, so I'll add it today. At 1 p.m. on the second night watch, I owe the Prime Minister of the Guanghan Palace an extra update of 5 pieces of his jade, 50,000 Chidian dollars. I hope the Prime Minister won't blame me. There's still the third night watch at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 720. Hua Xiaoheng? He looked at Gu Nianji deeply. There seemed to be some jealousy, but the faint mockery made the jealousy water. It wasn't as strong as he had hoped. Gu Nianji originally didn't want to mention this in front of Hua Xiaoheng in case he thought she was jealous. However, on second thought, it would be too deliberate if she didn't mention it. She clearly cared a lot about it. It was clearly the last straw that made her break up emotionally and decide to break up. Why should she pretend that the straw didn't exist? Why should she endure it herself? No one would care if she endured it until she suffered internal injuries, therefore she simply said it out loud. The situation at that time was still vivid in her mind. Every time she thought about it, there would be another scar in her heart. Let him imagine that she was jealous. It had nothing to do with her anyway and she didn't want to explain. Hua Xiaoheng raised his head and looked at her silently. He was no stranger to Gu Nianji's feelings, and he could fully understand her mentality at that time. Seeing such a scene in that almost hopeless situation, Even the strong-willed men in the Special Operations Forces who had undergone special training would immediately break down when they encountered such a scene during high-intensity and high-pressure training. They would also need a long time of psychological treatment to recover afterward. Not to mention that Gun Yinji was only a little girl who hadn't experienced any setbacks and would only be 19 years old in 5 days. The psychological impact she had suffered was definitely greater than those field agents. After a while, Hua Xiaoheng reached out and held Gun Yinji's arm. He said in a calm voice, "If you were by my side, I wouldn't have given you the chance to sprain your ankle." Gun Yinji was originally smiling, but when she heard this, tears suddenly came out. She quickly broke free from Hua Xiaoheng's hand and turned her head to wipe her tears with the back of her hand. She choked and said, "Yes, I believe you. But most of the time you're not by my side, so I have to make sure that I don't have the chance to sprain my ankle. Even if I do, I have to learn to save myself. By the time someone comes to save me, I might have already become crippled or fallen to my death." Hua Xiaoheng let out a long sigh. He knew that Gun Yinji's injury this time was too deep, and it wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. He didn't say anything else. He carried Gun Yinji's 2 suitcases on each side and walked out. Gun Yinji stopped him. "Mr. Hua, can you lend me your phone? I can call someone else to pick me up." Hua Xiaoheng didn't stop walking. Of course, he didn't lend his phone to Gun Yinji either. He just carried his suitcase and walked out. Gun Yinji had no choice but to stomp her feet and follow him out of his official residence. A silver-gray Bentley Bentaygas V was parked at the entrance of the official residence. It was a sleek and streamlined car. It was parked quietly at the entrance as if it was intercepting a section of moonlight. It was tall, reliable, gentle, and considerate. Gun Yinji clicked her tongue and followed Hua Xiaoheng into the car. Hua Xiaoheng drove to the entrance of the military base with one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the side of the window. He glanced at Gun Yinji, who was sitting in the passenger seat, and asked her, "You don't like this car?" Gun Yinji turned to look out of the car and crossed her arms as she replied calmly, "No, this car is pretty good. Better than many men." Gun Yinji added silently in her heart. He was willing to bear hardships and be trampled on as he pleased. He was also tall and reliable, gentle and considerate. Just the latter 2 characteristics alone were already very difficult to coexist. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her again and turned the steering wheel to go up the highway. It was Tuesday and it was already past working hours. Although there were still many cars on the highway, it wasn't crowded. The 2 of them didn't speak along the way. They quickly arrived at B University and arrived at Gun Yinji's graduate student dormitory. Seeing the familiar dormitory building from the car, Gun Yinji almost burst into tears again. She looked at the building through the window and said emotionally, "I thought I wouldn't be able to come back at that time. When I slept outdoors in the Alps, I dreamed of my dormitory at night." This was her home, a place that could truly give her a sense of belonging. Seeing her own school, her own dormitory, and even some of the classmates she'd had conflicts with in the past, she felt especially close. During this struggle between life and death, what she'd lost was dependence, and what she'd gained was confidence in her own abilities. Only by relying on herself could she live a solid life. Gun Yinji clenched her fists and turned to Hua Xiaoheng with sincerity. "Thank you, Mr. Hua." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her quietly, then leaned over to unbuckle her seat belt. His body was tall and burly, and when he leaned close to her, the heat radiating from his body enveloped her. Gun Yinji shifted her body uncomfortably. Hua Xiaoheng paused and whispered in Gun Yinji's ear, "You don't have to call me Mr. Hua. That sounds so distant. You can call me by my name." Of course, he also didn't want Gun Yinji to continue calling him Uncle Hua. Gun Yinji thought about it. She'd already achieved her goal, so she probably didn't need to use Mr. Hua to express the distance between them. She nodded. "Okay, Hua Xiaoheng, then I won't hold back." As soon as the seat belt was unbuckled, Gun Yinji opened the door and jumped out. Hua Xiaoheng followed her downstairs and carried her suitcase upstairs. When she arrived at her dormitory door, Gun Yinji was so excited she couldn't control herself. She anxiously searched for her keys in her bag and scrambled to open the door. As soon as the door was opened, she saw Ma Chichi poking her head out of her room. "Yinji! Chichi!" The 2 of them screamed at the same time and excitedly ran up to her. They hugged each other and shouted and laughed until tears came out of their eyes. Ma Chichi pulled Gun Yinji and said anxiously, "Yinji, are you okay? I saw them electrocuting you. I was so scared that I cried." Gun Yinji quickly shook her head and winked at Ma Chichi. "I'm fine. I'm really sorry for scaring you. It actually didn't hurt that much. I was just purposely screaming to make them happy. You know, what if I acted like I was unyielding, and they continued to torture me? I had to satisfy their perverted mentality, right? Ma Chichi knew Gu Nianji was comforting her. She wiped her tears and said, "That's good. You look like you're really fine. Look at your little face, it's even more rosy than mine. Little girl, I've missed you so much." As she spoke, she hugged Gu Nianji and rubbed her head with all her might. Hua Xiaoheng watched from the side as the two roommates were so affectionate, and smiled slightly. It was great that Gu Nianji was in a good mood. Ma Chichi finally calmed down and saw that there was someone else in the room. She looked closely. Oh my! Wasn't this the amazing Major General Hua Xiaoheng? She had even yelled at him at the airport that day. Ma Chichi's face instantly turned red. She was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to say. Gu Nianji didn't know about the part at the airport. She thought Ma Chichi was embarrassed to see Hua Xiaoheng, so she turned to Hua Xiaoheng and said, "Hua Xiaoheng, thank you for driving me back. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time." What she meant was that she could leave now. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't just leave like that. He picked up Gu Nianji's suitcase. "You guys talk. I'll go pack for you." As he spoke, he walked towards Gu Nianji's room. Gu Nianji thought it was inappropriate and was about to stop her when Ma Chichi grabbed her from behind and dragged her to her room. "Nianji, come here. I have so much to tell you. If you don't let me talk, I'm going to explode." In Gu Nianji's heart, Ma Chichi was more important than Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji followed Ma Chichi into her room. The door slammed shut, and Ma Chichi pulled Gu Nianji to sit on her bed. She looked her up and down to make sure she was really fine. She sighed and said, "Nianji, I have to tell you something." Gu Nianji nodded and patted Ma Chichi's shoulder. "Chichi, is there anything you can't tell me? My life was saved by you, so I will tell you everything I know." Ma Chichi blushed from Gu Nianji's praise. She said sheepishly, "I didn't actually do anything. I just made a few calls and sent 2 videos." She then asked, "Was it Professor He who saved you, or was it that?" Ma Chichi pouted in the direction of Gu Nianji's room. Gu Nianji was amused by Ma Chichi. She covered her mouth and said, "It was Professor He. Mr. Hua Xiaoheng was too far away, so he didn't make it in time." "I knew it." Ma Chichi punched the bed angrily and was a bit worried. "Nianji, I'm telling you, I even scolded him at the airport that day. Do you think he'll take revenge on me?" Gu Nianji froze. "Scolded him? You saw him?" She originally thought Ma Chichi had found Hua Xiaoheng through Yin Shixiang or Zhao Liangzi. Ma Chichi was also stunned. "Didn't your boyfriend tell you?" Gu Nianji smiled and pinched Ma Chichi's mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. My boyfriend isn't him anymore." Ma Chichi's expression became serious. She grabbed Gu Nianji's hand. "What happened? Did he really steal my love?" Gu Nianji was confused and couldn't help but push Ma Chichi. "Chichi, wake up. Why are you sleep-talking in broad daylight? You still don't know?" Ma Chichi bit her lip and thought about it. She moved closer to Gu Nianji and whispered, "It's like this, Nianji. I was in a hurry to find someone to save you, but when I found Brother Xiong, he said your boyfriend wasn't in the country. Also, the higher-ups gave strict orders not to inform him about your disappearance. Later, I saw on TV that your boyfriend went overseas for a visit and even brought the Prime Minister's daughter back to the country. I went to the airport to wait for him." "Stop." Gu Nianji's eyes widened. "I'll say it again. You said someone didn't allow you to inform Hua Xiaoheng? And you went to the airport to wait for Hua Xiaoheng? But, how did you get in?" Gu Nianji knew that an event like that would definitely be cleared. There was no way someone like Ma Chichi would go in to wait for someone. Ma Chichi suddenly felt embarrassed. She fidgeted and whispered, "I'll tell you, but you can't tell your boyfriend. Tell me, I promise I won't." Gu Nianji felt it was inappropriate after saying that, so she added, "How many times have I told you not to mention my boyfriend? He's not my boyfriend. We've already broken up." This was the second update. It was an additional update of 5 pieces of He's jade, 50,000 Chidian dollars, awarded to the Guanghan Palace's leader. It was still the third update today. She had to remind him about the recommendation tickets. There was still the third update at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 721. WW what? Broke up. Ma Chichi jumped up from the bed in shock. "You're not kidding me, are you?" "No, don't be so surprised." Gu Nianji quickly pulled her to sit down. "Tell me first, then I'll tell you why we broke up." Ma Chichi patted her chest and said with lingering fear, "Okay, it's like this. That day Brother Xiong told me he was going to the airport to pick you up. That's Huashao, so I went to the airport to stop him, but you know I couldn't get in. Brother Xiong purposely let me in. Gunyanji's heart warmed as she squeezed Ma Qiqi's hand. Ma Qiqi was encouraged and continued to tell the whole story like a storyteller, including what Yin Shixiang told her and how anxious she was when she couldn't get help. Finally she said, when I got to the place where Huashao and that tan something had arrived, I happened to see them get off the plane. Guess what I saw? I saw your Huashao become that tan something's flower protector. I was furious and rushed up to yell at him. Huashao, your girlfriend was kidnapped and tortured with electrocution. How could you still be in the mood to be a flower protector? Nianji must be blind. You scum. You'll get what you deserve. Gunyanji's heart trembled. She didn't see what Ma Qiqi said later on in the video. Qiqi, you're saying that you saw them get off the plane, saw Huashao help that Tanguerin, and even took the flower from her, and then you rushed out to yell at him? Gunyanji asked in detail. Like a jigsaw puzzle with a missing picture, she had to work hard to restore the whole picture. Ma Qiqi nodded. Yeah, you know it too. It was a live broadcast on TV, but the director cut it off. After that, I didn't see the part where I scolded people on the internet. She giggled and poked Gunyanji. Nianji, you won't blame me, right? Gunyanji snapped back to reality and shook her head. Of course not. How could she blame Ma Qiqi for helping her like that? She couldn't even thank her enough. It felt so good to have someone support her and speak up for her. She hugged Ma Qiqi and rested her head on her shoulder. But you said you guys broke up. Don't tell me he really fell in love with someone else? Ma Qiqi wondered. What's going on? Gunyanji suddenly felt very complicated. Her feelings and her decision couldn't be explained in a few words. However, she also took Ma Qiqi's concerns seriously. She thought about it and said concisely, no, Huashaoheng didn't fall in love with someone else. It's my own problem. This time I've gone through fire and water and I've come to terms with many things. I won't force things. This way everyone will be comfortable. Huashaoheng couldn't be changed and she didn't want him to change for her. So the best outcome was to break up peacefully. She didn't want to break up after their feelings were completely worn out. That would be too ugly. Ma Qiqi didn't really understand, but she still nodded. Yeah, it's good that you know what you're doing. But Nianji, you're still young. Even if you're in a relationship, there's no need to be stubborn. Take me for example. I've already hung from many trees. Not only did I not die, but I've also become stronger. Gunyanji couldn't help but giggle at her teasing. The unwillingness and resentment in her heart slowly dissipated in Ma Qiqi's hearty laughter. She thought it was just a broken up. Just like Ma Qiqi said, she was still young. The most important thing now was to complete her studies and start her own career. She would be able to truly be independent in this society and not have to worry about being abandoned. Gunyanji joked with Ma Qiqi for a while and remembered it was Tuesday. She said, Qiqi, do you have class today? Oh no. I forgot as soon as I saw you come back. I have 2 classes in the morning. I've already passed half a class. Ma Qiqi hurriedly put on her backpack that she had already packed and ran out. Gunyanji only got up to go back to her room when she heard the door outside the dorm slam shut. She froze as soon as she entered. Huashaoheng had already put her suitcase in the closet and was getting water to clean up for her. The windows were wiped clean, the floor was mopped, and the bed was covered with new sheets. The old sheets were removed and placed in the laundry basket. Huashaoheng heard the door open and turned to see Gunyanji come in. He straightened up and asked, Ma Qiqi went out? He had just heard the door open and close outside. Gunyanji nodded. She went to class. She was so excited just now that she forgot she had class. She's going to class now. Huashaoheng patted the bed. Come and sit. Gunyanji was speechless. What's wrong? I won't do anything to you, Huashaoheng said calmly as he stood up from the bed and moved away. Gunyanji didn't go over. She leaned against the door and lowered her head for a long time without saying anything. Ma Qiqi's words just now made her think a lot. Ma Qiqi had scolded Huashaoheng at the airport, but Huashaoheng hadn't mentioned a word to her. Perhaps a man like Huashaoheng wouldn't care about such a small matter. They only cared about national affairs in the world. People like Gunyanji and Ma Qiqi weren't even worth mentioning in their eyes. Naturally, they wouldn't care if you scolded him, praised him, or loved him. As for him, he was indeed not a match for her. Their families didn't match and she was the one who forced it. It was too hard for her. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing to be able to extricate herself from such intense feelings. Gunyanji said calmly, Huashaoheng, I apologize for my attitude before. I really felt very uncomfortable and wasn't in a good state of mind. I hope you can be magnanimous and don't take it to heart. Hua Xiaoheng froze and narrowed his eyes at Gun Yanji. He didn't feel happy about her calm attitude. Instead, he felt even more depressed. I know you had your difficulties, but you also know that I really couldn't be that magnanimous in that kind of situation. I'm very tired. Gun Yanji looked down and brushed away a strand of hair that had fallen. I know. You don't have to apologize. Hua Xiaoheng walked to her and held her shoulders. I'm the one who needs to apologize. I don't blame you. Gun Yanji quickly shook her head. I know I don't blame you. Although I'm really sad, I know I shouldn't blame you. You can blame me. Hua Xiaoheng felt even worse. It was worse than when Gun Yanji argued with him and when she stabbed him with her words. He leaned forward and pulled Gun Yanji into his arms. He patted her back. Yanji, you're not angry anymore, right? Gun Yanji smiled and gently pushed Hua Xiaoheng away. Hua Xiaoheng, I said I'm not angry anymore. Then are we still breaking up? Of course we're breaking up. What? Hua Xiaoheng was silent for a long time before asking. No reason. If you really want a reason, you can say that cheetah is not a match. Gun Yanji raised her head, and the sparkling light in her eyes instantly disappeared. You think I'm old? Hua Xiaoheng let go of Gun Yanji's shoulders and took a step back. He looked at Gun Yanji's face and clenched his fists behind his back. Gun Yanji was slightly sullen. Hua Xiaoheng, is that how you explain cheetah is not a match? You know it's not like that. Hua Xiaoheng didn't dwell on the topic anymore. He looked away and looked around the room. I'll take you to buy a phone and some daily necessities. Your fridge is empty. I can buy it myself. Hua Xiaoheng, thank you for today. Goodbye. Gun Yanji opened the door and was already about to leave. Hua Xiaoheng suddenly smiled at her. It was like a spring breeze blowing through a sleeping valley. Everything was awakened and full of life. Gun Yanji only felt that her eyes were dazzling and full of prosperity. Let's go. I'm free today. Hua Xiaoheng took her hand and naturally led her out of the dormitory just like before. Gun Yanji was immersed in the shock of that beautiful smile. After a while, she came back to her senses and broke free from Hua Xiaoheng's hand. However, they were already in the car. He was too cunning. Gun Yanji's lips twitched. She silently followed Hua Xiaoheng to buy a phone. She used her bank card when she paid the bill. Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything. He only helped her turn on the phone to look at the contents. He didn't say anything before putting it down. Gun Yanji bought the phone and installed the SIM card. Hua Xiaoheng was the first to call. He took the phone from Gun Yanji's hand and saved his number as A. That way his number would always be at the top. Gun Yanji was speechless. Gun Yanji took back her phone and called He Jichu. It was an unknown number. He Jichu wouldn't pick up. As expected, the call went to voicemail. Gun Yanji happily left a message. Professor He, it's Gun Yanji. This is my new phone number. I'm already back for class. Can you send me your class schedule? Gun Yanji wasn't only He Jichu's teaching assistant, but also his assistant at his American law firm. She was officially on the payroll. Hua Xiaoheng drove quietly and drove Gun Yanji around the campus. He asked casually, Yanji, you said you saw a house near the campus. Where is it? It was the third watch. It was the third watch today. I have to remind you about the recommendation tickets. Good night, everyone. Mwah. P.S. I have to work overtime tomorrow. I might be home late. The first watch will also be late. I don't know when it will be written. You can come read it tomorrow morning at around 10. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.